Sorry, my headphone wire's caught in my wheel.
No worries. I just started recording.
All right. Yeah, I was trying to edit my background so it doesn't look like a junk house, but I think I need a new couch.
Yeah, so do I. I'm just kidding.
What's that?
I said, yeah, so do I. I think you need a new couch too.
Well, you got a
And
drum set back there. That's
you need
good.
a new keyboard, dude.
Right, I know.
I'm just kidding.
Oh, you can't tell how shitty it is from. Actually, it's not shitty. It's just
it's just not
it's just cheap.
Yeah. I have a lot. Everything I own is that, right? It's just cheap. Like every guitar I own is like cheap, Yeah. So anyway, so we're recording. So how should we begin?
Well, we should probably have a script for this, but welcome to the channel and our tagline where the impossible is possible.
Sometimes.
Like that. Yeah.
Right. With enough effort and enough redos, right? You do something over and over again, it becomes possible.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that's the message of Make Guitar is that you don't have to spend $250 on a boutique fuzz pedal when you can make your own.
Oh yeah,
for like $25 or whatever.
Well, let's talk about that. We're going to come back to that in a moment because I got the numbers for you and it's pretty interesting. But hey, why don't we start out with this? So what are you listening to these days?
Musically, well, I've been listening to, I think the most recent acquisition is I bought almost the entire catalog of a band from Portland called The Chromatics.
Oh, I love the name.
Yeah. They were featured in episode 1 of Twin Peaks: The Return. And I just loved the song that was in that show so much. It was kind of like a logical successor to Julie Cruz. So I just bought everything that they ever recorded, and it's pretty cool. It's not like, as sonically dynamic as, something like Melody's Echo Chamber, which was the last thing that I just went crazy for, but it's cool.
I'm trying to look them up. Are they on Bandcamp?
I don't know. They probably are.
I think Bandcamp is my new place to get all music.
Well, it's a good way to do it because you're supporting the artist.
Yeah, it's actually really cool. I've warmed up to Bandcamp. Maybe like a year or two ago, I had this New Year's resolution where I said, I'm just going to buy music on Bandcamp. That's it. No Apple Music, no Spotify, nothing, right? And I did it. I was on it pretty well for a year, though for some reason I broke down and I bought a couple albums on Apple Music, right? And I bought like the first 3 or so Led Zeppelin records. For some reason I had this like thing. I was like, man, I want to hear some like blues rock, and I was like, okay, I'm going to listen to the first couple Led Zeppelin records. So I bought Led Zeppelin 1 and I listened to it. And then I bought Led Zeppelin 2 and I listened to it. And I was trying to imagine like what people were hearing when the record came out. And I can see why they were blown away. It's pretty good music. And then it's like, it's pretty heavy and it's kind of good, though it's also kind of a little weird. Like, it's got this combination of like, J.R. Tolkien fantasy with just straight up like blues, like really heavy blues. And then like, and then this like weird, super distorted kind of heavy metal, like fuzzed out thing. And then they'll do like, something like weird acoustic song, like that sounds like English folk music, you know? So it's a pretty
Hmm.
weird melange of stuff, you know?
Yeah. Oh, I enjoy that exercise, trying to listen to things sort of in context, like what it would have been like, um, to be listening to Led Zeppelin in the era of, um, really, like, the Beatles were still, um, popular on the radio, and like, I mean, the Beatles were getting weird by that point too, but like, just like in context of what other people were doing at that time when a band that's really, innovative comes along, what that would do to your brain.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it was pretty inspiring. Like actually just listening to the Led Zeppelin records, you know. Uh One of the things that I ran into the other day is I was listening to a podcast, and it was this electronic music podcast. It was this thing called Why We Bleep. Okay.
Mm.
And the guy that does it is he does a really good podcast. Like we could, you know, learn a few things, right? Like
Yeah, I've
he's
been
just
meaning
really
to watch
good.
it.
Yeah, but he was interviewing somebody, and I forget the person he was interviewing because I hadn't heard of them before. But that guy he was kind of like a musician and also a producer and like, you know, a technician, like studio technician. And he mentioned something that I thought was really interesting is he said the way that we listen to music and the way that music is produced and delivered these days is has totally changed because when we made records, there was a lot of weird limitations due to the record album. So, for example, and I never knew this, they said that the grooves on the record need to be closer together as the needle gets closer to the center of the actual physical disc, right?
Right.
And so what that means is that you could only put the loudest, most dynamic songs at the beginning of the album. So they would have to be
Mm.
on the outside of the disc. So they had to plan for that, right? And technology changed over time, but when records were first produced, like you couldn't have a lot of bass. That's why like a lot of records don't have a lot of bass on them, is because the needle would bounce out of the groove, right? You know, and so like, you know, if people planned a record out, you had these limitations that you're like, okay, there's two sides and each side holds like 20 minutes of music. So, you know, I forget what the real numbers are, but it's something like that, right? So you got 20 minutes of music per side, and then your most dynamic track has to come first. And then, you know, we can do loud stuff, but it can't be as crazy as we get to the center of the disc or to the end of a side, you know. And then he said like after that then came CDs, and they threw out the whole idea of having a two-sided album because, you know, everything was just
Mm.
on one side. And then now music has evolved again, and people don't buy albums anymore, they just stream. And so when you're streaming, you're just picking and choosing songs from other artists and you're mixing them together, and you're not listening to a piece of music as a whole that's conceived in two parts.
Right. Yeah, I miss that experience of listening to a side of a record or listening to two sides of a record. But, sometimes I would just listen to one side of a record. Or if you have like a 6 record set, deciding that you have like one disc and you like one side of that disc, and having that experience. Where it's like you said, it's 20 minutes or is it 40 minutes? No, you said 20 minutes aside, something like that.
Yeah, it's something like that. But yeah, I totally get what you're saying. Is like, you know, like you know, there's a saying. It's like limitations breed creativity, or sometimes
Hmm.
they say limitation breeds freedom. So now when you can just do anything, like I think maybe people aren't quite as creative. Like back when, you know, the Beatles did a ton of stuff on a 4-track, you know, right? So they did this ton of stuff on a 4-track, and then they had to fit it onto an album that was two sides where they had 20 minutes. So like if you had a set of songs and you wanted to put them together and they added up to more than what would fit on that side, you had to all of a sudden you had to rejigger things, you know,
Hmm.
right? And but people did a lot of crazy stuff, like that was very creative, right? So they planned, like, you know, you'd have like the end of an album like would end on a track that began the next side or something, you know,
Hmm.
right? You know, I think Pink Floyd kind of did that. I don't know, like, so I don't know, maybe we got to bring the album back. And actually,
I think so. They're really popular.
yeah, actually, and that's one of the things that I was going to take us back to Bandcamp, right? So that's one of the things that Bandcamp does. I notice is they basically they sell music as albums,
Right.
right? So you can buy the album from the artist, which is like, whoa, that mind blowing in 2020, right?
Hmm.
Right. So
I
yeah,
mean, I still buy albums, but
yeah,
I,
yeah, I kind of
I mean,
prefer
in
it, but
digital form.
yeah, me too. Yeah, but I kind of prefer it, and I think because like I grew up with that, so I'm a little bit older than a lot of people, right? So I'm
Hmm.
kind of over 50, so I'm kind of in the other half. But like when I was a kid, everything was on record, right? Vinyl or cassette tape. So I'm already used to it, and I'm also
Right.
used to the concept of you buy the music and you own it,
Hmm.
right? I'm not used to the concept of I pay a service to stream the songs, so I don't really own them, but I just get to listen to them. It's totally different.
Yeah. That's there's just like a great insecurity in that. It's like if you stopped paying your, like your Adobe Creative Cloud fee, then you can't like edit your files anymore. That's crazy to me.
Yeah, I know. I think that's nuts.
Like people who buy Apple Music, like you can't listen to that song that you love because you stop paying for Apple Music.
Oh yeah,
That's crazy.
yeah. Yeah. I think I said Apple Music earlier, but I just buy stuff from iTunes.
Hmm. Right.
So I don't really pay. I've never signed up for Apple Music and I've never used the service, but I'll buy. I bought a couple albums from iTunes because you can't get like Led Zeppelin's not on Bandcamp. If they
Hmm.
were, I would
Right.
have bought them from there. You know, right? I got a. What else did I listen to too? I listened to Sleep. Have you heard of Sleep?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so they came out with a new record. They were like back in the 90s and then they kind of disappeared. They had came out with one record and then they were just like, I don't know, the record company just didn't I think their record was like it was like one song,
Oh yeah. Dope
that
Smoker.
yeah, and so the record company was like, we can't release this. And so they kind of disappeared. But the funny thing is they've kind of come back, right? And so they came out with a new record. Yeah, it was all right, but you couldn't get it on Bandcamp, so I
Hmm.
just bought it on iTunes.
I'm guessing they were one of those bands that were they were waiting for the, like the digital music revolution to, so basically they could release a record directly to the public. I mean, it's been that way for a while, but I think there was a time when, like in the 90s, probably you you really couldn't distribute a record on your own. You needed the record company.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, and it's funny, they are surprisingly popular now. And the
Mhm.
guy that plays the guitar, Matt Pike, I think his name is, right? he he had another band, High on Fire, and they won a Grammy. Like I never knew that. I was like, High on Fire won a Grammy. I mean, I saw them like in the Mission at some bar, but like 10 years ago or something. you know, right? And they won a Grammy. I don't know. Like um I kind of like Sleep. There's some songs where I'm like, okay, this is a little bit excessive, or like the lyric, like the songs, like the vocals. I'm just like, oh, these are kind of lame. Like
It's
I
not
don't want
like
to hurt
sitting around
anybody's.
that. Yeah, you're
Yeah, I
not
don't
like
want to
sit
hurt
around and.
anybody's feelings, because the guy probably sings better than I do. Lol, but but just like some of the lyrics are kind of like they're a little out there, and the way they're delivered is a little like weird, a little goofy. But the songs, I think, are a lot of the songs are great. Like, and the new album, actually, some of the music I was like, yeah, this is pretty cool. Like I was kind of digging it.
Hmm. Well, I'll have to check it out. I haven't listened to any of their recent material, but I think it's it's a certain kind of energy. It's an occasional thing for me to listen to that kind of music. Like I don't sit around like relaxing to sleep.
You don't.
No, no. Maybe good for like doing the dishes or I don't know.
Yeah, I totally know what you mean. um that was like, you know, this, I don't know why I'm thinking of this right now, but I had a friend like back in high school, you know, I mean, this is like in college, you know, but in high school we used to smoke a lot of pot, you know, and hang out. And I remember talking to this guy one time and I was like, yeah, man, I like to get stoned and then like do stuff like creative stuff, you know, play the guitar, draw some pictures or do whatever, you know. And he's like, nah, man, I smoke pot and then I go do laundry and I clean the kitchen. Like, you know, he's like, it's so boring and mind numbing. Yeah, I might as well be stoned, you know. And I thought about that. I was like, hey, actually, that's kind of that's kind of a good take on, you know,
Yeah,
we
but
could
they're
always,
both good. So
yeah.
then you end up just being stoned all the time. Oh wow, I'm going to eat some food. Maybe I'll get stoned first.
Sorry. We can always edit. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, actually, you know, I've been listening to a lot of like stoner rock on stoner doom metal on Bandcamp, you know. So I have a whole list. I'm not going to name. We'll come back to that later. I have this theory though. I don't know what you think about this, but I have this theory that doom metal is the new punk rock.
I think that fits. I mean, like the time that punk rock kind of became that it emerged was very different, like culturally. And you know, if you think about the times that we live in now, we just need to be prepared for the for doom and gloom.
Yeah. And rock.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, that's how we
Gloom,
cope.
dude, gloom rock. Maybe I'm going to
Gloom
start my
rock.
own genre, you know. Um, yeah, so I just have this theory because I think like, you know, there's some doom metal that I think is kind of good, you know, I'm like kind of into it, like Sleep, you know, it's kind of in the
Mm-hmm.
genre, you know, and there's a few other bands, you know. I guess Boris is kind of in there, but they kind of have a wider, you know, net that they throw, you know, so they're in a few categories. They do some thrash and some like almost pop or shoegazer or whatever, right? You know,
Hmm.
but I think the other facet is there's a lot of doom metal that's just kind of it's just kind of not that like I don't want to say not that good, you know, but it's kind of like, like, with punk rock, like anybody could just pick up a guitar and just start rocking because that's how they felt, you know,
Mm-hmm.
right? And they're just like, yeah, I'm gonna play some music. I don't have to know how to play music, you know, right? Like the Ramones, like, I mean, the Ramones are amazing, right? They're actually really amazing. Like that guy that plays the guitar, he does it all with downstrokes. I've tried that, and it's
Yeah,
like to play as fast as he
it's a
plays
lot of
with all.
work.
It's like hard, like impossible,
Mm-hmm.
but that said, they're not like technically proficient where anybody would be like, oh my god, these guys are virtuosos, like, I mean, they're great, right? And maybe they're virtuosos in their own like way, but I think that also like doom metal has kind of spawned that. It's like anybody with a guitar is like, man, I can just get a big muff and turn my amp up to 11 and just
Mm-hmm.
like hit some power chords and like just let them ring. I don't even have to know how to play fast, right? And then also, I think it's a bunch of people like, and I don't really know, but I kind of suspect it's a bunch of people that were like kind of punk rockers in their younger days, and now they're getting older, so they move a little slower. They play guitar a little slower,
Mm-hmm.
right? Maybe that's where I relate to it from. I don't know, But that anyway, I had this little epiphany where I was like, oh yeah, doom metal is the new punk rock. I mean, everything's a little different too, but
Mm-hmm.
you
Well, I
know.
mean, it's interesting. The thing that they kind of have in common is there's this empowerment. I mean, just like uh, from your monologue, I'm getting this. Like, people are being influenced by bands like Sleep, or like the way that you travel from playing like punk rock to playing something like doom metal, and empowering others is I think what comes through in that. Um, like the culture when punk rock um, came along, it was kind of like a do something. Like that was the response to certain. I'm not really I'm not
No,
really
no,
having a cohesive thought, but like it's sort of like it's it's shitty. Do something about it. And doom metal is like it's shitty. um, play some doom metal and smoke some pot.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, I think there is kind of this thing where, people are just like, hey, just get out and do it, like doesn't matter,
Hmm.
so like, and I'm actually all for that, I had another friend who, some years ago, maybe like 10 or 15 years ago, we were having a conversation, and he brought up the idea that punk rock killed music. Like, because
Mm.
before punk came along, you had all these rock bands and they were doing like more and more crazy stuff, and then punk rock came in and they just said, you don't have to know how to play guitar, you don't have to know anything about music, it just has to be loud and fast, right?
Hmm.
And it's how you feel and what you want to say, and social justice or whatever, like whatever the point was. And I think he has a point too, like I think
Absolutely.
like the quality of music went down, but
Hmm.
I don't think I'm gonna throw away any of my good punk rock records anymore because I still enjoy them, like that.
Yeah. No, I mean, I don't think that it's a detractor to punk rock, but what, um, I always would say sort of like the downside of that is, um, the music that didn't get promoted because it wasn't in vogue to have a melody anymore. And that's happening again today, but like in, the grunge era, for instance, um, there was melodic music that was really good that record companies, just they kind of dropped these bands because they weren't grunge, and they were too melodic and positive or something. I mean, there was this band from Minneapolis called Trip Shakespeare. They were really good, and the guys wrote some really good melodic hooks, but they got dropped by the record company because they were too kind of melodic and they had harmonies and stuff like that.
They weren't grunge.
They
It
weren't
was like,
grunge.
yeah, grunge was a thing, and they were like, oh, we gotta have a grunge act. So sorry,
Yeah,
you guys are on the outs. Isn't that too bad?
it is. Yeah,
Yeah,
because I mean they worked really hard. I saw them quite a few times. Like when I was in college, they would just do the college tours, and um, they
yeah,
were a great band. They were really tight. I had it all down.
yeah. It's like one of those things where they just missed their moment,
Hmm.
right? But really, the problem isn't them; it's the industry.
Exactly.
You know, you know what I mean, right?
Hmm.
Because like it shouldn't be what the industry wants to feed us all and tell us what the genre du jour is, right? Instead, like I should decide, I should have the opportunity to hear what's out there and decide whether I like it or not, you know
Right. And I think that might be, the time that we are living in now, that you actually can choose what you listen to. I know there are a lot of people who, they listen to the top 40 radio and that shapes everything that they listen to. But more and more, people are discovering music in new ways. Um, sometimes through television shows, like the Rick and Morty show, they really popularized Blonde Redhead as kind of like a sort of a meme.
oh, funny.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there's like a
I'm
scene.
gonna plug Bandcamp again.
Okay. Yeah.
you know
Do it.
I really enjoy it. I have this like, I like anytime I hear some, or I see someone talk about some music, or I haven't even heard it yet, or if I just hear a snippet, I'll just immediately go look them up on Bandcamp and then follow them. And then that way, like I go back later to my follow list, I got like 100 bands on there, and then I'll listen to each one of them. Like I'll pick out an album and take a walk and listen to it. And then if I decide I like it, I keep it on there. And if I don't like it, I just delete them. And then, I'll follow like 10 more bands in the next week, right? So, you
Oh,
know,
that's cool. No, I have bought albums from Bandcamp. Um, um, but yeah, I think usually I just go to YouTube. And
oh
because
yeah.
everything's on YouTube also, but like if you really want to support the artist, you can actually buy it on Bandcamp, and I think that's a good way to go.
Yeah. Yeah, I like Bandcamp. Here's the dark side though of my music habit. I don't know if this affects you, but I have these headphones. They're wireless. They're
Hmm.
noise canceling. They're totally not these. Actually, I have another set, right, that are wireless, and they're
Are they like these?
no, they're like fancier.
Oh,
I don't know
okay.
why, but I bought these really fancy headphones, and and they're great, right? I love listening to them. Except I noticed like a week ago or so, that I was starting to get this ringing in my ears, and I was
Oh,
like, oh man, I'm just like listening to the headphones too. Like it's hard on your ears, right?
are you
Um,
using the noise cancellation?
yeah, I got the noise cancellation on too.
Okay.
It's not perfect, right? It works pretty good, but like it works better if you turn it up loud and then you can't hear the traffic and the wind and like.
Yeah, I try to be careful about that, but I already have bad ears. Um, so I probably am turning them up too loud.
Yeah. I was getting this, I noticed I was starting to get this ringing in my ears, and then I was like, oh man, I got to go easy on the headphones. So I dropped off for the last 2 weeks using the headphones. So I haven't been listening, I've just been listening to music at home. So that kind of cut down on my music listening for a little bit, but I think I can go back to it. I just got to go easy.
Yeah, be careful with that. Like tinnitus is like it's a degenerative
Oh
thing.
yeah.
So oh.
Yeah. So like I don't know. That's why I'm just being careful. I'm old too. And you get older and you start to generate that naturally too, right? So it
Right.
just happens. So
Yeah. Well, as a bass player, I think I've lost a lot of my hearing by, um, I mean, I don't play that loud myself, but from being in loud music situations and being too close to the speaker at a club or something like that, it's not good.
oh yeah. Yeah. I've been to a few shows that where like it was just so incredibly loud. I saw Fu Manchu and they were so loud. It was like
Hmm.
I could feel my shirt moving, like the vibrations of the speakers were like they're like moving my shirt,
Hmm.
like you know.
And they're probably a band who has killed more, like people's hearing than most.
Yeah, they were loud, I guess when we used to practice at the practice space, that got pretty loud too,
Hmm. Well,
Jamie
it's all
is loud.
Jamie.
I know. Jamie, just for everybody else that's listening, he plays the drums and he's just got like one volume and it's up here. He's just like, I can't play any quieter, and that's it.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, but then sometimes he'll get even louder,
Yeah, I
like at
know.
the crescendo of the song.
Yeah. Yeah. So, hey, so we talked about what we're listening to. Let me ask you, what are you playing?
Um, what am I playing? I don't know. Actually, I've been starting to do rehearsals again, so I'm playing the bass more. I haven't been playing the guitar as much. What am I playing? Yeah, I've been playing with that the Vulcan pedal.
Oh, cool. How's
Um,
that going? Do you like that?
I like it a lot. It sounds really tough.
It's got a cool overdrive sound to it,
Mhm.
and kind of like just basically goes from like, medium overdrive up to like distorted, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't quite get to fuzz territory, if that makes any sense.
I mean, it gets close. Like I said, it's right between the Tube Screamer and the Fuzz Face for me. Or
Oh,
which one
okay.
do I
Yeah.
have? The Fuzz Factory? Can't remember. I always forget. Um,
Yeah. I
the
don't remember.
the one that you made for me,
Oh, woolly mammoth.
the woolly mammoth. That's a woolly mammoth. Okay,
Yeah. With the four knobs.
with the four knobs. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Woolly mammoth. Yeah. Yeah. You know what's funny? Speaking of the Vulcan, I ran into a thread on Reddit. They have a Reddit called what is it called? It's called like DIY pedals, I think. R/DIY pedals,
Oh,
right?
okay. I'll look for it.
Yeah, and they just have people building pedals. I posted a bunch of stuff there. Um, and like if people post stuff too, they ask questions like, why doesn't this work? I'm having this problem. Well, I saw one the other day and a guy was like, yeah, my delay pedal isn't working. Luckily it was an easy one because the picture I could see it looked like his chip was in backwards.
Mm.
So I said, hey, look, you got to turn that around. And he's like, oh yeah, I didn't even notice. So that saved his day, hopefully,
Oh,
right?
that's awesome. I mean,
Yeah, it's
this,
good if you group source your problems. Like we all get stuff done, or we fix them faster. It's kind of good.
right. I mean, you
But
came from through the old days where you didn't have internet community to help you solve your problems.
Yeah, yeah, it was a little different back when, you know. I mean, I got started because of the internet community. There's a site, DIY Stomp Boxes, right? But you know, that's pretty good too. It's a little different than Reddit. I actually like that a little better than Reddit, but it's not as the it's not as big a community. There's like more people on Reddit, you know.
Hmm.
But speaking of the Vulcan, somebody posted a picture of like a DIY pedal that they had bought from someone else, and it said Vulcan on it, right? And he's like, "Is this a Vulcan? Like, is this Joe Davison's Vulcan circuit?" You know? And his pedal had the picture. It had 4 knobs on it, and the
Hmm.
one I built from the original Joe Davison schematic that I sent to you has 2 knobs, right? So this other one, either it's a different pedal or the same pedal with some mods because it's DIY. So, you know, you could add a tone control and something else, right? So, and
Right.
it kind of looked, it was hard to tell, but from what I could see, like from his picture of the interior of the box, it did kind of look like the Vulcan circuit, but it looked like someone had tacked on like a Big Muff tone control and I don't know what the 4th knob did, right? So it was hard to tell just from the picture, right? But it was
I
kind of
suppose.
interesting. Like, you know, he had a lot of questions about it, you know. Um, so it was just funny that that popped up again, you know.
Yeah, I don't really miss having a tone knob on that pedal at all. It just sounds great. It's got a lot of transparency, um the uh like my plimsoll, for instance. I find that if it didn't have a tone control, I'd bum out. Like it just it muddies the sound in a way. So um the
Uh-huh.
tone control is kind of crucial, but on this one it just kind of keeps my tone intact while just adding that that overdrive.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, that pedal, the circuit is interesting. It's kind of got some like electronically, like the arrangement is unique.
Hmm.
So a lot of the pedals that you see, they all share like a topology or an arrangement of the parts that a lot of other pedals share. So like there's a whole range of pedals that are all similar to the Tube Screamer, or they share like the arrangement of parts that the Tube Screamer uses, which is a couple diodes in the feedback loop of the op amp, right? And then there's a bunch of pedals that are built around the fuzz face, right? Which is 2 transistors with this feedback loop. And then there's like, you know, this topology of the Big Muff, right? Which is like transistors with diodes in the feedback path of the transistor, right? And there's 2 stages. And, you know, there's a whole bunch like that, right? So there's like 5 or 6 or more designs. But the Vulcan is actually kind of its own thing, right? You know, someone could probably tie it to something because I think like it's hard to describe it like in words, but it basically has like this diode on the input to the transistor to the base. And I can't think of any other pedal that has that. This is the only place I've seen that,
Hmm.
you know. And I actually, to be honest, I'm just an amateur at this. So I actually have a problem like in my head trying to figure out exactly what that diode does, you know. So like, yeah, I'm not sure. And it's like 3 stages like that, you know.
Interesting. I mean, it would be over my head, but I would like to see the schematic for this.
Yeah, we'll dig it up. It's on the interwebs, right? So you know,
Okay.
we can all take a look at it. I got to build, you know, I've been like totally off my game because I did that one for you, and then I did the circuit board, and then I redid the circuit board, and I had them delivered, and I got my second version of the circuit board all built up, but I actually haven't tested it. Like all the parts are soldered in it, and I just need to test it and throw it in a box. So
I think I might have 2 versions of the circuit board.
yeah, yeah, I gave you one of each because I
Oh,
I
okay.
I had I had the boards done through Osh Park, right? And when you order from them, they do these prototype boards. So if you're making a circuit board and you just need a prototype, you can just buy 3. But
Hmm.
you can't buy 1, you have to buy 3. But they charge you by the square inch. So for 3 boards, it's about $13.50, which and delivered to, so they don't charge any shipping. So it's like, you know, $4, $5 a board. which is like a great deal, right? So like
Mm-hmm.
I'd pay $5 to have someone else build the boards and mail them to me. Like that's not a bad deal. So the first version of the board, I got 3 of them done. I built one of them up, realized there was a small mistake, but it could be fixed with like a jumper. So I did that.
Mm-hmm.
I boxed that up and then I sent that pedal to you. So that's the one that you have. It has the first version of the board in it. But then I still had 2 of those boards left over. And then I fixed the mistake and I ordered 3 more boards. And so I threw one of the first version and one of the second version in the box with it when I sent it to you.
Okay.
Right. And so that leaves me with 3 more boards. I got 1 of the first version and 2 of the second version and left over to build. And one of those I built it up, like I said, and I just haven't put it in a box yet. I could dig it out. It's over here
Are
somewhere.
you
I
doing
won't worry
any
about it.
mods to it? Like any additional?
No, but that's a great idea. Actually, that you mentioned it. I think that circuit to me, like when I listen to it, is I think like if you look at the schematic, like Joe used like a point 0.1 or a 100 nanofarad capacitor like everywhere in the signal path, right? So, and that's like that size capacitor is pretty much like, mathematically it's good for guitar signals, right? It's just fits like the range of frequencies you get on an instrument. But I think like, if you use larger or smaller ones, you can kind of shape the tone of the pedal a little bit. And I kind of feel like that pedal might be ripe for like adjusting those capacitors like a little bit, because I find the pedal seems like when I hear it, it sounds pretty good. It's got like a really good meaty tone, but it's like it's very much in the mid range, right? And so I feel like I
Mhm.
might want to hear like a little more bass out of it. So maybe a bigger cap. I don't know. I just thought that would be a good place to experiment.
Mm. Yeah, I haven't played it through a loud amp yet, so I'm sure that will change my impression of it. Like if I play it through the Blues Junior or something. Um, uh, but yeah, it sounds great through my modeling amp. I can't imagine like making any changes to it, but it'd be interesting to see how much that changes. But
Yeah.
like I said, I feel like it's pretty transparent. You can you can get a lot of you can vary the sound quite a bit by using your tone knob on your guitar, or the adjusting the amp.
Hmm.
Like, I mean, I think that's where it's at. Like, I think it's, it doesn't really change the sound of the guitar. It doesn't, like whereas the Tube Screamer, it does kind of muddy the sound of the guitar a little bit initially.
Yeah. Yeah. So actually, while we're speaking of that, let's talk about another pedal just for fun, right? As long
Okay.
as we're talking about pedals, right? So I just built this one.
Beautiful.
Yeah, actually, it looks pretty good, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Um, and this is a clone of the algal bloom, right? And it sounds pretty good, actually. It's kind of a fun one. The thing that got me on this was I'd heard of it and I kind of like just passed it by, whatever, right? And then Brendan was talking about it, and Brendan was like, "Hey, should I build one of those?" Or no, Brendan wasn't building it. He was like, "Should I buy one of these? It says that the tone
Mm.
is like," and he kind of went through their marketing copy. He kind of repeated it, and I was like, "Brendan, don't build that. You should. I mean, don't buy it. You should build it. You could make it. Right?" And then I was thinking about building something, and I saw like there's a place called Pedal PCB that they just sell circuit boards for stuff, and they had a couple algal. They have a couple versions of algal bloom on there. And so I was like, well, I'll just buy a couple circuit boards and build these, right? So I bought 3 circuit boards of the algal bloom and 3 circuit boards of the algal doom, which is the same pedal, but not quite the same. It's like a version of the pedal with like 6 knobs, and it's got an extra transistor on it, right? I don't know if that one's like specifically for bass or low tones. I don't know, right? But I
Hmm.
thought like I'll just build these, right? And And so I built all 6 of them a while ago, and I kind of got them all working. And they sound pretty good, actually. I think the Doom actually sounds better, right? Because it's got a couple more knobs, so there's a little more control over the tone and the sound of the pedal. But then you know, one of the funny thing that happened was, I posted a couple pictures to the Reddit channel, and then I thought, like, there's another channel on Reddit called r/let's trade pedals.
Hmm.
And then I thought, like, because this is my original thought when I built 3 of them, I was like, well, I'll give one of them to Brendan, and then one of them I'll keep, and then the third one, if I can sell it, it'll pay for the first 2. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, okay, well, this, and then I can keep my pedal building habit to like a revenue neutral or a, right? Right? So anyway, so it sat on like Let's Trade Pedals for like a long time. I'd posted a couple things, and then it's like Let's Trade Pedals. Like, you can, as long as you offer stuff for trade, you can also accept cash for stuff. And so I put some stuff up there because, like, sometimes I buy pedals. So I was like, well, I'll if there's some pedals that I want, I'll list them there for trade, right? So I
Mm-hmm.
listed a couple things, right? And then nobody offered anything, and they were up there for months. And then finally, like, a guy sent me a message like last week, and he said, like, oh, do you still have that Algo Bloom? And I was like, yeah, I got it, and he asked some questions about it. And he said he had cut a deal with someone else for one, but it had some noise when you turn the knob, like there's like kind of a crackle, right?
Hmm.
And the thing about that is, I had a discussion with him about this, is like some pedals will do that.
Right.
If you have a pot that is like on like a DC resistance to ground, or like where the pot is like in the DC, like sets the DC bias for a transistor, like in like the pedals, like the Super Hard On, the ZVEX Super Hard On does that, right?
Mm.
If you turn it, you're always going to get a crackle, because as you change the bias, the AC changes, and it you get an audio signal coming out, right? Um,
Right.
so I had a discussion, and then I made a video of the pedal as an example, and I turned the knob because mine has a little bit of that, but it's pretty quiet. It doesn't bother me, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
anyway, so I sent him the video, and he was like, "I'll take it," and he's like, "How much do you want?" So, I'm like, $100, right? It's a good round number, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then he was like, well, there's one on Reverb right now for 80 shipped. So can I offer you 80? And so then I was like, well, okay, I'll just take the 80 because, nobody else is offering anything. And I got 3 of these. I can't play 3 of them, right? Right. So I might as well get rid of one for 80 rather than not get rid of it and wait. Um, Plus I
And you got
looked on,
another one out in the world.
yeah, right. So anyway, so I put that together, and then as I was doing that, I started thinking, like, hey, how much did that actually cost? Like, what is the actual cost? And I'm gonna get my iPad out here and go through the numbers.
Okay, good. Yeah.
So it was kind of an interesting thing, kind of eye-opening. In the past, I had always calculated the cost of a pedal like roughly at $25. Now, obviously, it matters, like the type of pedal, the number of parts in it and stuff, right? You know, um, in some pedals, like they use like weird, hard to find parts that cost a lot of money. Some of them don't use any of that stuff, right? Some of them just have
Mm-hmm.
one knob, right? So that's cheaper than doing a pedal with 4 knobs or 6 knobs, right? So anyway, so I added everything up, and this is what I got right here. Uh, so I sold the pedal for $80, right? But it cost me $8 for the PCB,
Mm-hmm.
$6 for the enclosure, $5.95 for the jacks. So that's 2 1/4-inch jacks. I use the Switchcraft jacks too, so they're like
Mm-hmm.
good quality, and the DC jack, right? And then it was $5.75 for shipping, $3.40 for the knobs, $4 for the parts. That was kind of an estimate, right? So I just kind of guesstimated the parts. And actually, like, if we got super technical, the parts might be cheaper than the $4, but because resistors are like 2 cents a piece, but you can't
Mm-hmm.
buy like 6 of them, you have to buy like $4 worth. So you got to buy like 200 resistors anytime you buy a resistor, right?
Hmm.
Um, you know, but and then the other parts too can be like transistors can be like 10 cents or 15 cents or a quarter, right? And caps can be like 10 to 25 or 35 cents, maybe 40 cents, right? So I just guesstimated $4, right? Because there's also shipping and a bunch of other stuff involved there, and solder and wires, and so I just guesstimated $4. And then the switch, like the stomp switch, is 250. So the total there is what was it? It was like $35, or was it? I thought it was actually 38. It looks like I have 35.60 down here, right? Um, so it was like $35, right? And then I'm like, okay, so I sold it for $80, right? Um, and and like, so I'm getting like half. I'm getting like double the money back, right? So I'm getting like, I spent like $40 to make the thing, or 35 something, $38, whatever it was, right? And then I'm getting like another $40 on top of that afterwards, right? As I'm getting paid back. So it was
Hmm.
kind of interesting, like, I don't know that it makes a business. Like, I think like if you really run a business, you got to get like, I'd have to get like 4 times. If I could get the cost of pedals down to $10 and sell them for 40, or get them down to
Hmm.
20 and sell them for 80, then I'd be making money, in like in like a viable way.
Right.
But it was kind of interesting too, because like the most expensive part was the enclosure, right? So usually
Hmm.
I like to use these like bare metal enclosures because they're cheapest, right? So like I kind of like the bare metal ones like this, right?
Hmm.
But this one, for some reason, I bought a bunch that were like powder coat, right? And so these the black ones like are cheaper than some of the colors, but the powder coat costs more.
Right.
So like
It
it's
looks
like
really
another,
nice.
yeah, the powder coated ones are like another $2 or buck or two over the cost of the bare metal ones, right?
Hmm.
Yeah, actually, yeah, it looks pretty good. Um, so the enclosure was the most expensive part, and then after that, the jacks. So I use the Switchcraft jacks, and I swear by these, right? Because there's a lot of cheaper jacks, and they're smaller too, so you can fit them in tighter places and things. But
Hmm.
and there's these Lumberg ones that are really small, like people put them in those little tiny pedals, the mini pedals, and I've used those, and they work fine. But I actually don't like them because I mean, they do work, but I just like, sometimes they get bent, or like you put the jack in and it's kind of bending the metal, like it's not as solid. Like the Switchcraft
Hmm.
ones are like bomb proof. You put the jack in and it just has a super solid snap, and like the inner like contacts are not getting like bent out of the way, and reshaped.
Hmm.
So the jacks were the next highest cost. It was like $5.95. I think the Switchcraft jacks are like $2 each or something. And then or yeah, it's about like $2. And then the little DC jack was like $1 or something, or $1.35. I bought a Lumberg one. It's kind of a good brand, right?
Hmm.
And then after that, the biggest cost was shipping. So to ship for free, right? If I include shipping in the cost of the thing, the shipping was $5.75 first class, right? So I did first class, so I had like a tracking number and like a delivery confirmation, right? So that was $5.75. And then after that was the knobs. So the knobs, like these knobs are kind of nice. I think these were like 85 cents each. Here we get close up of knob, right? You know, um, so the knobs were like 85 cents each, and if I had 4 of them, I guess that was like 340, right? Um, and then the parts, you know, I guess the parts cost, if I estimated at $4, that cost a little more than the knobs, right? But actually, the parts weren't anything. Actually, I made a mistake too. I forgot the circuit board was the most expensive part because it was $8.
Oh, right.
So the circuit board was the most expensive part, my mistake. And then came the enclosure, right? And then after all that, the switch was the last one, right? So that was like 250. So I don't know, like maybe, maybe if I could get if I could get people to like the pedals enough where they were like, hey, this is pretty cool, then maybe I could bump the price up to $100, right? And then I'd be like, you know, almost like a third of the cost for like, parts and shipping and whatnot, and I'd be getting 2/3 of the money I would be taking in as profit.
Well, you can't buy a commercial pedal for $100 unless it's one of those. I can't remember what that company is. That
Behringer.
Behringer's one. Actually, Behringer's not bad. There's another one that that Guitar Center usually has like steep discounts on. Like you buy 3 and you get the fourth for free, and they're. I think they're pretty crappy. Like I've never found a use for any of them. But
we should talk about that in another episode, because I have a few things to say about that. Like I bought a bunch of these mini pedals, and I have like a bunch of stuff to say about that. But on this one, this is kind of interesting, too. Like if you think about it, too, like let's bring up another one. How do you feel about this? So this is a DIY pedal, but it's actually a clone of someone else's pedal, right? So actually I'm kind of like in some ways like, and I, maybe I should feel guilty about this. I'm kind of like, am I taking a sale away from Fuzz Hugger, right? So Algal Bloom is a pedal by Fuzz Hugger, right? So, now I'm not selling them like commercially, I'm just trading them on Reddit, right? Like I didn't even put this on Reverb, but in some ways, like, like actually it's kind of like Fuzz Hugger's, like idea, right? That said, I think like you can't copyright the pedal, right? You can't copyright it. You can patent the circuit, and you can copyright the layout, like the picture, the artwork for the box or the name, or even the artwork on the printed circuit board. You can copyright, but you can't, like if someone takes the same parts and arranges them in the same order, but their circuit board looks different than yours and they put it in a box with a different name on it, that's like legally that's totally okay unless they've patented the circuit. So you can't copy it if it's been patented. That said, like patent is like really hard to do. Like the United States has like these terrible patent laws. I don't know a lot about it, but essentially it's like really difficult to get a patent and very expensive. So some people do it, like wealthy, it's kind of another one of those things where like wealthy people like can do it and the rest of us like don't really have the opportunity.
It's really easy to protect your IP.
Yeah, exactly, right? So, so on the one hand, it's like, I feel like, it's a little like maybe a little unfair to Fuzz Hugger, because I think the guy came up with a great circuit. Like I love the sound of the circuit. On the other hand, like there was no way I was going to buy one of his circuits because I just make all mine, right? So like maybe he didn't lose a sale from me because I'm not going to buy one of his pedals, right? I'm just going to make my own, like, even if he didn't make it, if someone else made it, I just make whatever I wanted to play, right? But then again, here I'm going outside of me and I'm like, my personal use, and I'm selling it to someone else. Originally the idea was going to trade it, right? But then the guy offered me cash, right? He didn't have anything to trade.
I think just kind of based on that caveat, you don't really have anything to feel bad about it. You put it out there as a trade. You made it for personal use, basically. I mean, that's one pedal by you that's been released into the world. I don't think you're a competition for that guy.
I'm not much competition. I think he's got his thing down, right? I think he's doing okay. Though I don't know, like, but I just thought that
mass produce it. If you were to mass produce it, I think that might be a problem. I mean, that would be a problem if you were like making it commercially available and putting it out on Reverb or your own shop or something like that.
Oh yeah,
as competition.
Or even if I mine look totally different too. Though I guess I did kind of cop the name because I put Bloom on my box, right? So maybe that's kind of like, maybe that actually is where I got too close, you know, I don't know.
I
We'll
think
see. Oh, go
coming
on.
up with
Yeah.
your own name, that's almost more shady. Like, oh, I'm gonna just take somebody else's design and then put my own name on it.
Oh, good point. Good point. You know, um, but
Paying
yeah, and
tribute in a way.
yeah. You know, I don't know. Yeah, maybe it's like honest. It's a little more honest. You know, like this is a bloom. You know, right? You
Mm-hmm.
know, um, yeah. So here's another factor too. So if you're thinking like, hey, you know, what is building pedals? Is it profitable? Right? Is it worth? You know, is it worth the money, the time spent? Right? Um, so I built, like I did, the other calculation that I did was I added up the cost for building 3 pedals, because that's actually what I did, right?
Mm-hmm.
I built 3 of these, right? So the cost for building all 3 was 8250. so the so I'm still 250 down, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, right? Right?
But you have a pedal that you didn't have to buy,
That's true, right?
and you were
So
able
yeah,
to give a gift to a friend.
yeah, you know. Yeah, actually, I haven't given it to Brendan yet. I had meant to do it. I texted him, you know, and I was like, "Oh yeah, tell me your address and I'll send it to you." And then at the time, this was like a month or two ago. It was right after we started doing the shelter in place, right? And he
Mm-hmm.
was like, "Yeah, I'm just playing guitar, like acoustic guitar at home." So like don't have any use for it, right? So I haven't given it to Brendan yet, but I said, yeah, well, later in the future, you know, and then I'll send it to you, or when the lockdown ends, I'll like do a handoff, or maybe if I run into you at some point, you know, you can drop it off to Brendan's studio or something, you know. um, but yeah, so it's like 8250. It cost me 250. So actually 250 for 3 pedals, like if, or 250 for 2 pedals, right, is actually not bad. Like that's actually a
Mm-hmm.
total deal. So that makes it maybe worthwhile. You know, the elephant in the room that we're not talking about, right, is the cost of labor.
Exactly.
All right. So I didn't track how many hours it took me to build the pedals. Maybe that's actually a good one. I'll bring that up in like another episode, maybe. Maybe I'll do that. I have a few pedals that I've started that I haven't built yet. But maybe I can track the time it takes. Because it probably
That's
took, oh, go on. Yeah.
I think that'd be really interesting to a lot of people. Um, but I mean, if you want to give a spoiler, what would you estimate? What would you guess?
It probably took a few hours.
A
You
few.
know,
Okay.
I'm not like super fast with the stuff. I kind of have done enough of these where I'm also not like, you know, I don't get super stumped or like stuck on something, right? I kind of know what to do if it doesn't work. And,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I know the steps that I'm going to have to take to put it together, you know, and make the box and stuff. But, you know, I had to set up the milling machine and mill the boxes.
Mm-hmm.
And so that took a few minutes for each box. And I had to set up the artwork in Sketch. So I drew the designs. You know, I could have spent like half an hour to an hour or more on just making the digital artwork,
Mm-hmm.
and then transferring it and setting it up with the mill. And then I had to, you know, set the mill up and mill the 3 boxes. And then that probably took an hour or more. And then soldering the circuit boards. Yeah, maybe I'm just estimating in hours. Like it might have been an hour to do the 3 circuit boards, but I actually did 6 because I did the dooms and the blooms together,
Mm.
right?
Okay.
Because they're very similar pedals, and I just had them all. So I'm just like, okay, I'm just gonna like line them all up and, you know, do all 6 of them at the same time. So you know that could have been like another hour or so, and then so that's maybe like 3 hours, right? And then like actually drilling the boxes takes a little while. It's not that slow, but the drilling, because like when I set up the mill, like I had it mark the holes, like where, like it put like a little circle where the hole would go, so that made it easier to drill. You know, I could just run the drill through it, so that was pretty fast. But that was probably like another 15 minutes or more, right? Maybe
Mm-hmm.
half an hour, because I kind of, you know, sometimes I have to fix the hole with the reamer or something, right? And then wiring up the boxes, that's like the slowest part, right? Probably like running all the wires, like getting everything in the box, right? But actually, you know, the pedal PCB circuit boards are pretty well laid out. Like I like the way that they work. They put the LED at the top, and then they put like all the off-board wiring at the bottom. And there's just like four, like actually I started when I did that second version of the Vulcan, I actually followed their scheme and set mine up in the same way that they do theirs, because I like the way that their circuit boards worked when I put some together. You know, but yeah, so it's probably took me like 4 hours or 5 hours to get the 6 pedals. So that kind of sounds like an hour a pedal, but I think if you did just one pedal by itself, it would take longer than an hour. You know, but if you do 6 of them, you kind of you get a little cost savings, right? You know, right? But yeah, so you know, at minimum wage, that's really cutting in. Even at minimum wage, it's cutting into my profits. You know, right? I'm
Right.
gonna have to sell some more pedals, right?
Well, I mean, I think if you're just doing this to save the money on like buying a pedal that you want, then you can take your own cost, your own labor cost out of the equation. Like you're just doing this as like a hobby, and so that you have this pedal. If you're doing them to sell, then yeah, you really have to consider your labor cost, and that's hard to do in the U.S., especially in San Francisco.
Yeah. Actually, that's a really good point because, you know, as a hobby again, like, because I consider it like a hobby, it's not like a business. You know,
Hmm.
I have a job, so I just go to my job and I work. But, you know, in the evening, I'm like, I'm going to make a pedal, you know, so then that's kind of fun for me, right? So actually, you know, like I didn't even track the time because it didn't matter. I was just like, I'm just going to solder some stuff up tonight. And that's my, you know, after dinner activity, you know? And
Hmm.
so that's okay. And I like to hear new pedals too, and it's cheaper for me to build them than to buy them, right? So like I feel like I'm saving a little money, and I'm getting stuff that if I had to pay the full price for, I would feel a little bit of trepidation, like, do I want to spend $200 on another fuzz box? Like, you know, like, right, you know, I don't need another fuzz box. I got like a whole like wall full of fuzz boxes, you know, and especially like
Right.
one, like I'm not even sure if I want this one, you know. I just want to hear it, you know.
Hmm.
Right, you know what I mean? Like there's a bunch of pedals where I'm like, I just want to hear it. Like how much different does this big muff sound from the other big muffs, you know? Like, you know, so
Right.
yeah. So anyway, so I think as a hobby, it's kind of good if you can sell one every once in a while or trade them with you. That's why I put them on the Let's Trade pedals, like r/Let's Trade pedals, right? Because if I did that, then I could maybe trade them for those pedals that I wanted to try, and that might even be cheaper than me buying them or making them, right? It would save
Oh,
me some
right.
time, right? You know.
Yeah. Well, here's a question: are there commercially made pedals on Let's Trade pedals, or are there a lot of DIY pedals?
You know, most of it's commercial stuff. Like, actually, I think I'm like there might be some other people trading DIY stuff, but I saw mostly commercial stuff. I was trying to actually, you know what, I had this weird idea too. I was like, I wonder if I could make some money here. Like, I mean, not like I'm like trying to make a buck, but it was just like an experiment. I thought like,
Hmm.
you know, there's those things where people like they get something and then they try and trade it up. Like, you
Hmm.
know, so like there was like some story a long time ago of a guy, he started with a pen and he's like, he traded it all
Hmm.
the way to like a house somehow, you know,
Right.
like, but it took some time, you know, and it's like he traded the pen for like a notebook, and then he traded the notebook for like, you know, I don't know what, like a pair of pliers. And then he got the pair of pliers and traded it for like a chainsaw. I don't know. I forget how he went, but you know, it kind of went through all this stuff, you know, right? But I
Hmm.
thought like, what if I built this pedal and I traded it, and I got like some kind of boss pedal, and then I tried to trade that, you know? So it was just
I
like
think that'd be really interesting. But I think that a lot of times people engage in that, they get involved because they want to be part of a social experiment, not because they really want that comb or that notebook or um,
oh
whatever it
yeah,
is.
yeah. Yeah, I should tell everybody I'm doing this, and then I might have some more success. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, well, Trogley, like he's had people offer him something like ridiculously more valuable than what he's got on trade, and then he ends up with a Gibson custom shop guitar at the end, and like I think it's artificially inflated
Yeah.
because people want to be involved in Trogley's
Yeah.
blog.
Yeah, totally. I totally get that, right? Yeah, I should tell everybody for sure,
Hmm.
But anyway, that was just like a weird idea I had, which it was not really, to be honest, like probably it was like more exciting to me to get a new pedal, right, and trade to get into the pedals that I want, because there's some stuff that you can't build, or it's like really difficult to build, and it's just kind of like it's just like way more efficient to just buy it,
Right.
right?
If I may, what's the last pedal you bought?
Oh, the last one I bought, what did I buy? I can't remember what I bought recently. Trying to look at my pile of pedals there. You know what I bought, I guess, recently, which is not very exciting, is I bought a bunch of these mini pedals. I think that was like the most recent purchase. And so I bought and I feel like those should be their own episode,
Mm-hmm.
so we'll talk about those later. But I bought a bunch of these mini pedals. For some reason, I wanted the mini pedal board, but that was before the lockdown. So I thought like, oh, if I go to the studio and I play, I can take my mini pedal board because it'll be a lot smaller, easier to carry. And then now I
Mm-hmm.
don't go anywhere. So it's kind of a moot point,
Yeah, but I mean, we'll get out of the house eventually. I'm actually going to rehearsals already, and I'm trying to be like really conscious of social distancing and everything, but and masking and whatever. But
Oh,
yeah,
so
music has to live on. Live music needs to happen.
yeah. Yeah. So you're practicing in the studio right now. Do you wear a mask when you practice?
I um I haven't been, but the other day, like we went into Brendan's studio, and there were a couple people, like one of his studio mates was there with a friend, and Brendan's like, "Hey, you guys want to jam?" And I should have at that point just said, I'm leaving. This is not what we signed up for. We'll have to cut this part out. I'm sorry, but
Yeah, it's all
yeah,
right.
when I play with the Southbound Sinners, we're not wearing masks when we do rehearsal. I feel like there's enough ventilation in that room that we're not, really, we don't really have a problem. But like the studio downtown, I think it's too small of a space. But
Yeah,
when we
it's
play at Tupelo, we're wearing masks. I mean, the guys who are singing have kind of like gone back and forth on that, and um,
yeah.
like Ryan has like a pop screen that he uses to hopefully keep any particles from getting past the mic.
Yeah. Yeah, that studio downtown, the rooms are pretty small, and there's not a lot of ventilation,
Mm-hmm. It's
right?
pretty
So
bad.
that's that's like super enclosed, you're really sharing a lot of air in there, it gets really stuffy too.
Mm-hmm. And that's another reason that I'm not in a hurry to get back down there, because it's been really hot and humid, and I bet that same air is in there for the last week.
The same air. Yeah, you can go back and breathe the same air.
Yeah.
Ah!
Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
hanging in the air.
Yeah. Um, Let me see here if I got any other questions here. Let's see.
You have questions from the listeners?
Oh yeah, we should have questions from the listeners. No, actually, I have questions from me. Like I was just thinking, like, oh, what can we talk about? Um, oh, yeah, here's a good topic just for fun. What kind of guitars have you seen on Reverb? Not that no, I'm not implying that somehow you surf Reverb and look at all the instruments there. You know,
Um,
or I'm not even implying that I do that, but I mean, just what if, right?
okay. Well, your answer is going to be better than mine. My feed right now is it's kind of stale. I've been seeing a lot of the I don't know, I can't remember what they're called, the player series or whatever. They're it's like a Jaguar with a humbucker in the bridge position, and um, I don't need one of those. It's so similar to everything else that I have, but it's stayed in my feed. I think the things that I'm more interested in are like Gretsch Hollow Body. I really don't need anything. I want to like, finish the guitars that I have, like,
Mhm.
make modifications and, kind of like make them more playable than they are, but I'm happy with what I've got.
Yeah. Yeah, I got a couple just for fun. Yeah, I'm the same way of like I don't need another guitar. I wish I could sell a bunch of the guitars I have,
What do you
and
want to
then
sell?
and then I could get a new one, right? But
Yeah.
like I can't. I just everything, I just like get rid of it all. I could keep like one guitar and I'd be happy. Two maybe. Right?
Mm-hmm.
But what I saw that I thought was interesting that really intrigued me, right? You know, was this it was an Epiphone SG, but it was gold.
Oh,
So it was
that's nice.
like
Is it brand new? Like the new Epiphone, kind of
y-
more Gibson-y looking?
I don't know enough about the thing. I don't follow them that close. Like, like I never go to the Epiphone site to see what's good for 2020 or whatever, right? But I
Mm-hmm.
just saw this gold Epiphone SG and I was like, that's pretty nice. That is super swanky. I'm digging that, right?
Well,
Um,
Epiphone's been up in their game. They're like their competition for their own big sister.
yeah. Yeah. I almost wish like I could trade my black um Gibson SG for the Epiphone. I like the
Mm.
Epiphone better. It just looked cooler, right? And then I wonder too, because the Gibson, it has a big chunky neck, like the neck is really chunky, which is one of the reasons I don't like it,
Mm. Okay.
right? And so I wonder if the Epiphone actually has like a thinner neck. I haven't actually played one, so I don't know, right? So I'd almost like that better.
Yeah, that's a good
Um,
question. Maybe Trogley has a review already.
maybe, but the gold Epiphone SG was super cool, right? The other thing, I don't know if we want to look this up just for fun, but this one, like you kind of have to see it, right? But there was this 2009 distressed SG. It was an Epiphone, but it was distressed. But then it had this thing which really caught me, and I don't know if it was just like bad wording in the description, but it was described as with vintage kill switch, right? So it had a kill switch built into it. It was like an SG. It was distressed, so they'd like sanded off some of the paint, right? So the wood showed through it a couple places, right? But and then it had a kill switch on it, like but then it said with vintage kill switch, and I'm like, is the kill switch vintage, or maybe they didn't mean to put those two things together, but the way they phrased it, it kind of sounded like it.
Yeah, I don't know what they mean, but it's a cool looking guitar, and it's got that vibrola thing on it, which you
Yeah.
would probably take off.
Oh yeah,
But
yeah, I would take that off. Yeah, but I mean, actually, if I had that, I'd probably leave that on there because it would be a big hassle to get rid of it, right? I might leave that on, but
mhm. Yeah, I'd like to try that.
yeah. Did you see it? Did you see the kill switch?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the thing about the kill switch too is it said with vintage kill switch, and I'm like, that switch doesn't look vintage. It looks like they bought it at Radio Shack. Though I guess Radio Shack went out of business, so like maybe it is vintage, right?
Yeah, it could be from the 80s. It looks
Yeah,
pretty classic.
it's an 80. Yeah, I guess for a lot of people, like the 80s is vintage, right? For me, like
Yeah.
the 80s is like, it's like I was in high school. It's like hardly, like vintage is like
Hmm.
the 70s or 60s or later.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, hey, as long
But
as you're looking. Oh, go on. Yeah.
yeah, the modern kill switch would probably be like the big video game button,
Oh,
like on the what's his name, Buckethead
yeah, the Buckethead
guitar.
guitar. Yeah. Actually, I like that. I kind of
Mhm.
want to do that. I bought some of those video game buttons and I'm like kind of like planning to put them on a guitar. Well, I've been planning for a couple of years now. I just haven't done it yet, but that's in the works just for fun. Hey, as long as you're looking, I got another one for you to look up. Okay.
Okay.
This one might be harder to find, but look for Les Paul Smartwood Custom, right? Because there's a guitar, it's like it's a Les Paul Smartwood. And then these guys, they painted it. They custom painted the Smartwood guitar. As long as we're on like the DIY thing, it's like these guys did their own DIY version of this guitar, but it's a real Gibson, but then they added some paint to it, right?
What is Smartwood?
Well, okay, so I actually had kind of a thing for the Smartwood guitars. I don't think I'd ever buy one because I think that the value isn't there. But the Smartwood is like a thing that Gibson did where they made these guitars. Normally, they're basically just raw wood. They just have like a light finish on them, but they're just wood, so they don't have a burst or paint or anything. And then they'll take like off like exotic woods that are not usually used for guitars, and they'll build stuff with them. Like it'll be like canberra or like I don't even know some of the woods. Like I don't even recognize the names, right? But they'll take some weird wood and they'll make a guitar out of it, right?
Okay.
And they made them for a while, but they're not like super popular. I just kind of like them because they look like like a lot of them. If you get one that has a good wood on it, it can look like, your dad's hi-fi stereo, cabinet or something, which is kind of a look that appeals to me,
Yeah, I mean, this one doesn't look like it doesn't look like a Gibson Les Paul. It just looks like, it's kind of like a really ordinary furniture grade grain.
Yeah, some of them look like that too. Some of them don't look very, and then they'll look like kind of ordinary wood, and then they'll have cream plastics, which are kind of bleh, right? So it's like a lot of the Smartwood guitars look kind of not that great. Every once in a while, you'll see one that just has like a really great grain on it, and then that's where they kind of get me. Are you looking at the custom one?
Yeah, it's been repainted with a sunburst.
Yeah, it has a burst, and then it has a weird look at the edge. See, to me, it looks like they painted the binding.
Yeah, it's like they just painted like it has no binding originally. It's just like painted a stripe around the outside.
Yeah, and
by
I mean,
hand.
and doesn't it looks like it's by hand because it's a little bit rough, like I don't know. I just like I saw that and I was like, I don't know, man. And then they wanted like $1,300 or something. I was like, I don't think that's worth $1,300.
$18.95.
Oh, 18. Wow, I was wrong. Yeah. Cause like normally, like if you look at the Smartwood guitars, they're under 1,000. They're like, you can get them like they could be 1,000, but a lot of them are like in the $700 to $800 range, like so so I don't know where these guys like, I mean, I don't want to knock them because I'm sure that was like it was a total like project to build the thing, and it would be a cool DIY project, but I don't know $1,800 is like in the zone. Like, I think they're a little outside. They're pushing the envelope,
I think so too.
Right.
Gibson actually did make a Les Paul that had instead of having a maple cap, they just had the whole thing be mahogany, and then they put binding on it and gave it a paint job. So the face has like a sunburst or something like that, or is cherry, and then the rest of it's like whatever they normally do, like the brown stain.
Yeah, I think you're
totally nice.
Yeah, I think you're totally right. I think that and I'm just not a Gibson expert, but I think there's a whole range of Les Pauls that don't have a maple cap. They're just solid mahogany, right? So I'm pretty sure that that's the case. I just don't know what models those are, right? The Smartwood ones are just basically built like a regular Les Paul. I think a lot of times they'll have a mahogany back, but the cap will be like some exotic wood. But they'll do a mahogany neck, but the fretboard might be like some weird wood, not rosewood, but something that looks like it,
Yeah, I'll have to read up on that because Smartwood makes it sound like it's not wood.
Yeah,
it makes it sound like it's like some fake thing, like what was that stuff that they use for fretboards?
Oh, I know.
Ridge Light.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You know, yeah. I think the Smartwood thing was back when Gibson got like hammered by the feds
Mm.
for like kind of illegally trading in, or like I don't know if it's exactly illegal, but it was like they were kind of ran afoul of the laws for precious woods and exotic woods, right?
Yep.
You know, and I think what they did, I think the Smartwood kind of came out of that. I'm guessing, I don't really know the history, but I'm kind of guessing that it came out of that. They were like, okay, well, if we can't trade in these exotic woods like mahogany and rosewood, you know, we can buy small batches of weird exotic woods that are tradable, and we'll make guitars out of those, and we'll call it Smartwood, right? You know,
Hmm.
so I don't know exactly. That'd be an interesting thing. I would like to look that up. I think that Trogley guy did an episode with a Smartwood guitar, but he didn't really talk about the history of it. I think he had it on his show once, so there's a video there where he does a demo of it, you know.
Okay.
But
Yeah, I'll look
anyway,
it up.
that's
I'm curious.
yeah, yeah. Anyway, that's just what I was looking at on Reverb. I saw the the Epiphone SGs, and that one with the kill switch kind of caught my eye. I don't know if you've ever
Hmm.
seen any of those kind of distressed guitars. I haven't seen that particular Epiphone one, but I've seen a bunch done by Fender. And the funny thing is, from a distance, like they look kind of distressed or worn out or whatever. But a lot of times when you get up close, they actually have kind of a clear coat or sanding sealer. So actually, where the wood shows through, it's actually got a finish on it. So it looks like, actually, when you're up close, they look totally fake, you know. So it kind of
Hmm.
bugs me. Like that whole like relic look, just it doesn't appeal to me for that reason, you know.
Yeah, yeah, I'm with you. I don't want to jump on the like the anti-relic, like the way to relic a guitar is by playing the crap out of it thing. But I like old guitars that have been worn, but relicking it's not interesting to me.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. I'll go the same route, because if I saw a guitar that was all beat up, like I would dig it, I would like it, you know. And if I
mhm.
saw one that I really liked and it was like relic, but I really liked it anyway, like I might buy it. I'm not going to buy any guitars because I have too many guitars, but you know, right?
Yeah, and it shouldn't add so much. Well, I mean, it adds a lot to the price because the labor that it takes is pretty immense.
Yeah,
Um, so
yeah.
that's another reason I don't care for it.
I've seen the relicking thing kind of taken to an extreme too, where you've seen like the parts are kind of rusty, and then the top is just so like worn down. There's just like all these holes in it, and like I think when it goes too far, it's kind of dumb, because like a guitar that
It
was
is.
that beat up, like I would not want to play it. You
Right.
know,
I
right?
I wouldn't want to feel like flaking paint under my wrist.
Yeah,
Like
I
I
know.
want it to be smooth and comfortable.
Oh, for sure,
Or
right?
and it's like with an old so Gino had this really cool Jaguar that he bought. It was like a vintage Jaguar, but the paint looked like it was just flaking off, and I would be
Yeah.
afraid to continue to wear it out. Like
Oh,
it's
yeah,
you're,
that's a really good point. Like if I had a guitar that was vintage, like it was kind of like collectible, it was really old, like had some sort of historical significance, and me playing it was gonna like cause more damage, like that's like I don't know that I want to own that, you know. Like I think like that's the kind of thing I just sell. Like if you had like the 54 Les Paul or something weird like
Mhm.
that, like I'm like, I don't know if I want to sell this, because I mean, I don't know if I want to keep it. I better sell it, because one, it's worth a ton of money. Two, like the frets need to be replaced or whatever the problems are with it, you know. Like I don't want to pay to have that done and then not want to play it, because like, I don't know, like if the frets are all worn out and then you're going to replace them, but they're the original frets, like maybe that's significant, like I don't know, I'll let the collectors decide, I'm totally happy with something that's beat up, but like if me playing it isn't gonna like, remove that much value from it, I'm like, okay, like let's play, right? But
Yeah. Well, I mean that kind of gets back to like the Epiphone thing. Like I've never felt um like I didn't have permission to make major changes to my Epiphone guitars. Like I could route another hole for a pickup, or totally rip out the wiring and start over, or whatever I want. Sand down the neck. I could do whatever I want with an Epiphone guitar. But like my like vintage Gibson bass that I had, I kind of had some moral quandaries about that. Like I don't play this because it's so kind of like it does one thing, and it's just that like thumpy bass. That's all it does. And if I had another, like if it had a bridge pickup, I would totally play it. But um, you're not going to you're not going to route a spot for a bridge pickup on a bass from the 60s made
Yeah.
by Gibson. um,
Yeah, especially if you could sell it and then buy like, something that you could modify and have a few bucks left over, right?
exactly.
Right. I mean, unless you're a collector, right? And then in which case you're not playing the thing anyway. It's just, or you're not playing it seriously. You're just, right. You're just like, you take it out of the case every once in a while, sniff the cork and put it back,
Right.
right?
Yeah, I just don't like the idea of having stuff around like that. I like to be able to, use my instruments the way I want to use them.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, yeah, I know that's the one problem. Like I have too many guitars. Like I can play them, but then there's a lot of them just don't get played, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I think I got to have like 4 or 5 guitars, maybe 3, 4, 5, maybe. More than that is too many. And I think I have too many. Some of them got to go,
Right.
you know?
Yeah. Well, here's a concept. Like, what is it that makes you buy a new guitar when you already have a guitar?
Well, I think it's the lack of discipline because I should be practicing or playing,
Mm-hmm.
but instead I'm surfing the internet. It's I blame technology companies because they've they've wired the internet to like like where you have these constant notifications and stuff like distracting you from the things that are important, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know really. That's a really good one. Sometimes I just see stuff, I mean, and then I think about the equipment too much. Like like the other thing, I kind of have this thing for these. There's a thing called a Les Paul Lite,
Yes, I like
and
those.
yeah, and they're just thinner bodies, so they weigh a lot less. So I'm like, oh, I would like this because it weighs less. Like it'd be
Mm-hmm.
easier on your back, um, but then I'm like, I don't want to buy a new guitar, and then what would I like if I could trade a couple heavier guitars for the Les Paul Lite? Like, that would be a great deal, but no one would want to do that. Like I have a couple cheap guitars. Have my cheap ass guitars for your Gibson, or nobody's gonna do that,
Yeah.
So
Yeah. For
unless
me.
oh go on, yeah.
Oh no, you can finish your thought.
Oh, I was gonna say, nobody's gonna do that unless you just got totally lucky,
Right. Right.
just random occurrence,
Yeah, I don't know, but there's all kinds of people out there. Sometimes people just want, they want exactly what you have more than than you
Yeah,
imagine they would.
yeah, shit happens, it's,
Yeah.
some things happen,
Yeah, but
let,
for me, I think I keep thinking, well, there's this feature that I'm missing. Like I know, what type of guitar I like. Usually it's like 2 pickups and a tremolo on a certain kind of neck, and I have a few of those guitars. But there's always something missing, or there's one like defect, like my Epiphone Casino goes out of tune. It doesn't stay in tune well. It has that that Gibson Epiphone problem. Um,
wonder if you
so
could fix that. Is that fixable?
I think it's sort of fixable. I mean, it's a lot of people say it's like a design flaw, but with Epiphone, it's less profound than the Gibson, like the headstock break angle.
Mm-hmm.
But then it's like I got that Mustang and I had it plecked and I switched out the pickups, and then the issue with that is there's some kind of weird electronic shorting that happens when I use the tremolo. So then so then I made another Jaguar type guitar, and this guitar is great. I have no complaints about it, but um, there's always a reason. Like I started getting into Strats, and
Yeah, I wonder what's wrong with the Mustang.
I don't know. I
Seems
was
if it's a
thinking about putting
go
like
on.
some kind of a like a rubber washer underneath the bridge, because I thought maybe that with that rocking bridge that it was contacting the tremolo plate and causing that short, but I don't know. It's pretty sure it was wired from the factory this way, and if you have a rocking tremolo that's causing a short, then that's a design flaw.
Huh. So what is it? What's the flaw? How does it manifest? What do you hear?
It's like a crackling sound,
Oh. Huh.
and then the sound that comes out of the pickups is really farty, like when it's kind of like tilted over. So if I pull the bridge back to the middle position, it'll sometimes go away, but then if I touch the tremolo, it will get squirrely again.
Huh. We should experiment with that, because I wonder, I'm trying to figure like what it would be. And I don't know what it is, but I wonder if it's like the wire, the bridge, like the grounding wire that goes to the bridge.
Mm-hmm.
What if like it's contacting, like it's contacting the leg? Because I know that tremolo has these two legs that go down into these two cavities, right? And so it actually moves kind of like this,
Yeah, there's a cup in there, like a
Yeah.
metal cup
Yeah.
that
Well,
it
I'm
sits in.
yeah, well, I mean where the springs are.
Mm-hmm.
So the tail piece has those two things that rock,
Yes.
and there's two springs.
Mm-hmm.
So what if like the wire, like, because they actually like the the leg comes down and it sits against the edge of the plate and it rocks like this, but
Mm-hmm.
there's just like a knife edge where it makes contact. So if the wire's connected to the plate, like as you move it, it may break and remake contact as it rocks. So what if we could somehow do something so it was always making secure contact without, changing, right? I don't know. Might be something to experiment with.
Yeah, that could explain it.
I don't know. You have to take it apart though, which would be kind of like, take a little while. That's actually
Yeah.
not a hard one to take apart though, because you'd have to loosen up all the strings and then take off that plate where the tailpiece is.
Right.
Right. So that's not that hard. It's just got a bunch of screws, and then you could pull it up and see where the wire connects, you know?
Well, I think the wire, like the ground wire, I think it just connects to the cup. Like it goes into the cavity where the cups that hold the rocking bridge are. I don't think it
Oh,
goes into the tremolo cavity.
oh,
Yeah, I'm not sure what it was like on your vintage Mustang, but
yeah. Well, mine was modified and they had put like a different bridge on it. It had
hmm.
like a Gibson, like a harmonica bridge, like mounted on the two posts, right? So it's like totally not the same thing, right? But you know what that could be is, imagine now like you have this cup and it has this little needle thing like
Mm-hmm.
at the bottom. It's like a little point, right? It's like small, really small too, right?
Yeah.
And it just rests at the bottom of the cup and you're rocking it. And what if it breaks contact?
Yeah, that's what I'm imagining it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah. So I wonder
And I'm
if we
not sure
could,
how to fix that. Like, should it make more contact or less contact?
we need like constant unbroken contact for the ground wire,
Mm-hmm.
right? So yeah, I don't know. Like that could be a thing. The other thing you could do, and this is kind of a weird one, is you can just eliminate the ground wire.
Right.
Like that's actually works. Then you might have noise issues, right? But
Mm-hmm.
the ground wire is actually not essential to making the thing work. And actually, if you eliminate the ground wire, you eliminate the possibility that you could be electrocuted through some old amplifier through the ground,
Oh, that's good.
right? So that's like a thing that can happen too, is like you're like, if you like, how plugs used to have like a 2-prong thing instead of the 3-prong thing.
Yeah.
So the third prong that they added is like always to earth, right? If you don't have that, either one of the two plugs could be the connection to ground or the connection to your main, like to the power line, right? And if you flip the plug over, like it changes, right? So if one
Right.
of those is, if your amp is wired in a weird way, like it could send the mains through your ground up your guitar cable into the strings, and you can get electrocuted, right?
Oh man, the power at my practice space is it was wired upside down,
Oh,
and probably the ground was like not involved because
yeah.
there was some weird behavior there. So yeah,
Yeah. Well, it can be weird. Like you could be okay even in that case, but then like if the mic is wired opposite and you touch the mic while you're, then you get totally shocked, right? Or if you touch something else,
hmm,
So I'm not an electrician, but I think that that's how that works in general, right? So
yeah,
you could cut the ground wire, but I think I wonder if we could just like do something a little different with the ground wire to make sure that it was always connected. Like maybe connect it to the tailpiece instead of the bridge,
that seems like a good idea. Yeah,
I don't know, we'll come back to that, right? Like that's when we have to take apart and look at it.
right. Yeah, that would be an episode for the YouTube video channel.
Oh yeah. Let's see. What else do we have here for stuff to talk about? So we did what are you listening to? What are you playing?
Oh, I wanted to throw one other thing out there because you asked me what I was looking at on Reverb.
Yeah.
Um, what I'm looking at on Instagram is entirely different.
Oh, okay. Yeah. What are you watching on Instagram?
Have you seen those Dymel guitars?
Oh yeah, those are cool.
Yeah,
Those are super cool.
yeah. And I don't know what how you get one of those. You probably have to like call up Frank Dymel or whatever, and I don't remember his name, but I think it's Frank. Anyways, like they're all numbered. I think he's on like Firestar 175, so there's not that many of them out there.
Yeah.
Um, and they all have their own hashtag. Anyways, they have cool things like a rotating like a kind of a Leslie circuit or like a pickup behind the bridge
Yeah.
between the in the kind of harp area,
Yeah.
and those cool like kind of Warhol-esque paint jobs. Or
Yeah.
who's that other pop artist that I like?
Oh, I know who you're talking about. He does the comic book
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah. So he's
Roy Lichtenstein.
yeah, exactly. So he's
Yeah.
affected by that.
Yeah. I could see him do like a Keith Haring thing,
Yeah.
you know? Yeah. Those Dymel guitars are super cool, but they cost a lot they're super expensive. And I kind of look at them and I'm like, this was my assessment, so just take this with a grain of salt, but I kind of thought that they're more than they're worth, because they're super expensive, they're super cool, like I do really like them, but they're also like bolt-on necks and kind of Fender style production. So like
Mm-hmm.
they do have the custom like paint jobs, so I guess that costs a lot more, but it's not like they're making like the Gibsons. I kind of have my issues with Gibson, but like, when Gibson makes a guitar, it's like a fine piece of furniture,
Yeah.
like, the whole thing is one piece. It's very sculpted, that it's got binding, there's like a lot of things going on, where like the Dymel guitars, like they could just outsource the body shapes to someone else. I mean, they may do them in-house, who knows, right? But like they have just generic body shape, and they could just get a generic like maple neck and customize the headstock, and you know what I mean, and bolt it all together. So like to me, like the production on those should be cheaper, but then again, I guess if they're a small run, they have to charge more. So he's probably charging, like, because we went over the pedal thing, right? So like he's probably charging like, okay, I got to make 4 times my cost here
Mm-hmm.
to make this a viable business, right? So but that's kind of was my take on them. Was I felt like they're super cool, but they were like a little more than I wanted to spend for the type of guitar I'd be getting,
Yeah.
you know
I think I'd be more inspired to make a guitar that was, kind of that, design philosophy than I would be to, I don't know, what are they, like $3,000 or something like that? Or
yeah,
are they
they're in the
more?
thousands, man.
Yeah. Um, Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't know. It's like for expensive guitars, probably a better investment would be like a Duesenberg. Like
Hmm.
those seem like they have that craftsmanship thing, but I don't like. I don't really like the shapes of the Duesenberg guitars as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. You know, I mean, there's nothing wrong with them. They're just not my thing, you know?
Right. But I think that they are really nice, and that, they do have like a, if you do like a head to head with other guitars, they do have a different sound, which isn't something I would normally say about any guitar. I think like, it's
You
it's
mean
all in the pickups, like
the Dymols or the Duesenbergs?
Duesenbergs.
Okay.
Yeah, I've heard like people doing like a shootout between like a Duesenberg and a Gretsch, and you hear a difference.
Yeah. Do they have like, are they mostly humbuckers or Filtertrons or something like that?
Um, I'm not really sure what their pickups are. Like if they're made by Duesenberg. I think they have their own hardware too. Like
Hmm.
they have their own like tremolos and things like that they make.
Hmm.
Um,
I think you're right. I don't know a lot about them, but I've seen a few. You know, I've seen them pictures, you know. Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
that guy who played for Tom Petty, I think he was a Duesenberg player.
Oh, okay. Huh. Actually, the Tom Petty guy, he's pretty good.
Yeah, he
Like
is good.
like there's like a lot of those like they don't get like top billing because if you're in Tom Petty, it's all about Tom Petty. You
Right.
know, like he's singing, he's playing the guitar, they're his songs, they name the band after him. But the guy that plays the guitar, like the riffs are super tasteful. Like he'll
Mm-hmm.
just fill in, like he'll just find a little niche and he'll just put like a super tasteful little riff in there, you know?
Yeah, well, that's your job if you're the lead guitarist.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, let's see. Do we got any other questions here? So we got like, what are you listening to? What are you playing? Hey, did you make any new sounds this week?
New sounds.
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh well, I don't know. That would be grandiose of me to say that I came up with some new sounds.
Is there a new sound or have all the sounds been made?
I don't think all the sounds have been made. I mean, like, do you have a favorite sound that like favorite sound that's sort of a cultural touchstone that you can refer to? Um, I was talking
Hmm.
with some people at work today or the other day about Walter Murch and how he created some really amazing sounds for those Star Wars movies. Um, I mean, it's an invention when you combine found sounds with effects and things like that, like the sound of the lightsabers hitting each other. It's like a banging on a steel cable with a wrench or something like that, but it sounds really great.
Yeah.
One of my favorite sounds is from a movie is the sound of the kind of like the analog to digital conversion in the Matrix when Neo takes the blue pill or whatever. Is it the red pill, the blue pill? I can't remember. And he goes through the mirror, and then his the sound of his screaming becomes digitized, and it's amazing. It's a great sound.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't remember that. I got to look that moment up. The lightsabers, for some reason, are indelibly etched in my brain.
Mm-hmm.
Like I can totally picture the lightsaber, but I can't remember the Matrix
Well,
sound.
it's a sound that you'll recognize from Zoom meetings because when somebody's voice becomes, like distorted, digitally distorted, or it's like delayed and, like it's buffered or something like that, you'll hear this weird robotic sound. And in the Matrix, that sound is kind of extended. Um, yeah, it's one of my favorite sounds in a
Nice.
movie or any kind of like a cultural, like a media piece.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. Yeah. I really love good sound design, you know.
Mm-hmm.
It's because it really puts you in a place and like really like the sound designer is not in that place, like they're somewhere else, but they're envisioning like a particular environment and
Yes.
they put it together and it's like it's the kind of thing that like immerses you. So, it's the difference of from, you um, looking at, you know, a picture or a window into another world to you being in the other world. You know what I mean? So
Hmm.
like, like if you were in a movie and it was like a silent movie, or the soundtrack didn't match the what was happening on the screen, you could be sitting in a chair like watching a movie, right? But as soon as they create like a 3D, environment with stereo sound or whatever it is, whatever quadraphonic sound or whatever they're doing in the movie theater, and they make the environment sound like the place,
Hmm.
like all of a sudden you're in the place with the characters, and it's kind of an amazing trick,
Absolutely. I mean, in film studies, I remember hearing that um, like the soundtrack is like 70% of a movie's effectiveness,
Oh yeah,
um,
70%. Wow,
or
that's
something like
crazy.
that. I mean, I think it's
I
probably one of those things that's impossible to measure.
Yeah,
That.
I'd believe it,
Hmm.
I believe it. One of the things this is kind of off topic too, but but on the same movie topic, like not that long ago, I learned that actually all the audio, like all the voiceover, they record it again. So like they film every sequence, and the characters talk and say all the things they're doing, and then later everybody says their lines again in the
Hmm.
studio, and they record them in the studio. And I was like, oh my freaking God. And it kind of explains something, because a lot of times you'll watch a movie and everything looks fine, but you'll see parts where the voice is a little bit out of sync with people talking, right?
Hmm.
But you kind of write it off, you kind of let it go because everything else jives. But apparently they do that. They just record all the audio later.
Yeah. Well, I
you
mean,
know
it makes a lot of sense because in a lot of movies now, I mean, they're kind of like made for surround sound, or people watching with headphones or whatever, like just like a really high end kind of audio outfit, and the characters are whispering one moment and then screaming the next moment. And like if you're in the middle of a battle scene and you're whispering, but everybody can, the audience can still hear what you're saying. Um, Everything's sort of compressed. I'm not really a fan of that, actually. I kind of, I kind of prefer like uh, the more organic and just
you're into Dogma
natural levels.
95.
Well, I'm not really, but I guess if I had to choose that versus like the Avengers movies or something like that, I'd rather see something by Harmony Korine.
Yeah, everybody needs to look up, all the listeners. Well, we don't have any yet, but
Yeah.
but all the listeners need to look up Dogma 95. I think that was the name of it, right?
Yeah.
You know, yeah, yeah, that's great. So let me ask you this then. Uh, what songs are you playing this week?
You mean playing on the guitar or
Yeah,
whatever?
or whatever. Yeah, yeah, not like other people's music, but like you're playing it on the instrument. You're performing. What songs are you performing this week?
Um, I mean, I've been playing kind of like the uh, the stuff that I play with the Southbound Sinners, but on guitar, like kind of like the Runaway and the old timey stuff. I always kind of go for that rockabilly and classic rock and roll thing. Um, yeah, no particular songs, but
So,
that kind of
but you're
vibe.
you're playing the songs on guitar. Or do you play them in guitar in the band, or do you do it on the bass?
I play on bass in the band.
So at home you play them on the guitar. I guess
Yeah,
that's
I
good.
don't sit around and play the bass at home very much.
You don't. Why
No.
not?
Um, it's part of it's the frequency. Like you kind of have to plug in and turn up the bass, and it's to me it's sort of it's an accompaniment instrument. And some people think about guitar that way, like the guitar is to accompany the voice. But I enjoy playing the guitar. I like the sound of guitar, and I don't need a lot of volume to enjoy playing the guitar. Sometimes I'll just play my electric guitars unplugged.
Yeah, I do a lot of that.
So how about you? What songs are you playing?
Oh, I've been I ran into this thing. It was like a Gregorian chant. It's called the Kyrie chant. It's like Kyrie. And so I've been playing that a lot. I've been trying to turn it into like a doom metal song. I kind of wonder if that like is going to offend like a religious, someone highly religious, right? It's totally unintentional. Um,
That's how Madonna got launched,
yeah,
offending religious people.
yeah, I know. I'm hoping it's gonna,
You could be the next Madonna.
yeah, you can tell, right? Yeah. So anyway, so I ran into this thing. I don't know where. I was just like had this idea. I was like, oh man, those Gregorian chants are cool. Like maybe I could do one of those with a bunch of distortion, like super loud, with long ringing notes. And then I just looked one up and I was like, oh, here's one, and I played this chant and I was like, oh, this chant is actually really cool. Like it's super cool and it's like it's not hard and it's in like it just basically goes up and down the minor scale. I actually changed it a little bit, so I'm doing the Phrygian mode, so it's got a flat second.
Oh, okay.
So I just play it that
Okay.
way. So like mine's a little different than theirs, but it's basically the same thing. Plus, like it's also like traditionally, like it's before it was written. I forget when, like maybe like 1400 or 1500. So it was done before music was codified and we had a regular way of writing music. So at that time, you could write the notes down, but time signatures weren't super clear.
Hmm.
So it's basically done in free time. So you can kind of play it however you want. I kind of worked it out so it fits over like a 4/4, like 8 bar measure. So I left a lot of space, and then I play
Well,
it
that's
with like a
cool.
lot of distortion. So it like, you know, but yeah, I'm going to record it, you know?
Awesome. Yeah.
Um, so I have a couple recordings of it, but you know what I do is I put it in GarageBand and then I kind of work out the rhythm. And of course, like it's imperfect, but then I'll kind of chop it up so I get the good takes and the timing is right. And then I'll play a second take over the top of it. So I have like one continuous take of me doing it right.
Hmm.
And then, but usually there's a mistake or there's some flaw. So then I'll do another take. So like I've probably recorded the thing like 4 or 5 times now. And I have one that's almost right. So I think now I'm gonna like I'll publish it, but what I think I'm gonna do is I went outside to the park with my camera and I took some shots of just nature. So the way I have it, the arrangement I worked out, it's about the song is in 3 parts and you do essentially like actually it's kind of funny. It's like you do the first part 3 times and that's meant to like um kind of signify the three spirits like the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. It's
Hmm.
religious, right? And then I thought you're actually supposed to do each of the 3 parts 3 times, but the way that I saw it written was the first part is 3 times, the second part is 2 times, and the next part is like 3 times. I forget, um, but I just do all the parts 4 times because it's rock music,
Yeah.
right? But then what I'm going to do, and then it takes about 3 minutes to get through the whole thing, right? So it's like a perfect rock song length, right? So what I'm going to do is I took 3 minutes of nature. Like I just went to the park and I got this. Put my camera on the stand near the grass. There was a bunch of people out in the park, but I didn't want them to get in the picture. So I set the camera up so you can just see the grass and you see it just sits there. It doesn't do anything, but the wind kind of blows it and it moves. It's just like nature with nothing going on. So I think I'm going to put it over that. And then I took another shot where I found a spot in the park just looking through the trees. And then I just shot 3 minutes of that. But like nothing happens. Like there's nothing in there except every once in a while, like the leaves move a little bit,
No, I like it.
you know.
I would like to see that. I've been actually I found this channel. The guy hasn't posted anything for about 4 years, but he'll take songs. It seems like a lot of them are by Radiohead, but he'll slow them down 800%.
Oh yeah.
And then the video, it's usually something like I don't know if it's a still image or something that barely moves, but it's really kind of like
Oh, pardon me.
atmospheric. And I thought, well, this is a great kind of like just as inspiration, like a thing to play guitar over. You've got a lot of time to like settle into that, that A minor chord or whatever, like before it switches up, and you don't
Oh,
recognize it as music. I mean, as a given piece.
yeah. No, that's great. I remember you played some of that. I think it was Justin Bieber
Oh
slowed down
yeah, You
800%,
Smile.
which was total genius. Like I actually really was digging that, you know. But yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah, you know, so I did these shots, but you know what you're reminding me of now is I was talking to someone, they had suggested practicing guitar over a drone.
Yeah.
And there's a bunch of these on YouTube. Like you can look up drone, and it'll just be like a violin note or like a cello playing
Hmm.
E, you know, like that. You know, just the whole time, and you can play
Yeah.
over it. It's kind of cool. Like you know, you can play different scales or modes, and you can kind of get a feel for how the notes work in that mode over the tonic. You know,
Hmm.
um, so I had this idea to do that, and then I set up the synthesizer, and so I got the synthesizer droning on some notes, and that was maybe a thing. Maybe we should publish that. Maybe we could put that on our channel. You know?
Oh yeah. Well, you also have like you can do sequences on the synthesizer, and I thought, well, that'd be a great thing to play guitar over.
Oh yeah, yeah, you could do that. Yeah, yeah, you could do a chord sequence. You know, so maybe that's a thing. Yeah, the drones were kind of cool. I was thinking to like I don't know explore that a little bit more. You know the drones that you
I
can
think
get. Oh, go on. Yeah.
it's just a great starting place. Like, like you're not starting with a blank page. You're starting with an environment or a scene.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and then they don't have like a third. So it's not like they're taking a stand like we're in a particular chordal camp, you know, like so you
Yeah.
could play like a major mode over it and then
Hmm.
if you're in a different mood, you're like, "Oh, I'll play a minor something in the minor mode or one of the other modes," right?
Yeah.
You know, I'm kind of like an amateur music person, so like I'm not the music theory is a little beyond me, but I know the basic theory, you know.
Hmm.
But anyway, yeah, I
That's all
thought
you
like
need.
yeah, I thought it might be cool to do some like synthesizer drones, you know, and publish those. You can
Hmm.
just put them on YouTube, you know, it doesn't cost anything, you know. Um, so that's maybe something that'll happen. You know, and then
Yeah, I like that idea. I would collaborate on on a thing like that.
okay, I'll do it. I have actually, I don't know if you can hear this, but I got one. I got one here. This one,
Wow.
it's actually kind of more than just the drone because I have some things going on, but there we go. There's like C sharp, you know, you know. So I was goofing
It
around on
sounds
the
cool.
yeah, yeah, you know, but maybe that could be something that we do, you know. I don't know. You know, and it's like good for practice, right? So I thought that that
Yeah.
would be good for practice, you know.
Yeah,
Um,
I think another thing with the sequences is that you have rhythm then. Um,
oh, yeah, good point. Yeah, maybe we should do that. Maybe that would be a good, one of the things, speaking of rhythm and practicing the guitar, you know, one of the things that really helped me when I was younger, not like I'm that great, but like one of the things that like one of the things you need to learn when you're learning the guitar is how to hold the pick and how to
mhm.
use the pick to actually strike a string and then how to do it repeatedly. Like, I mean, it doesn't
Yeah.
sound like much, but like when I first started playing, I remember I kind of struggled with the pick, like what angle it should be at. And like it always felt like I was going to drop the pick, or sometimes I'm hitting the string and it just felt awkward,
Hmm.
you know? And so one of the things that got me over that is somebody gave me a cassette tape and it was actually a bunch of drum tracks on it. But it was just, I think it was actually for a drummer to practice with,
Hmm.
but it had a series and I forget how long these went on. They were all like, 5 minutes long or something. And then it would have like a series of half notes or whole notes just like someone striking the snare drum on a whole note. And then it was a
Hmm.
series of half notes, and then a series of quarter notes and eighth notes and 16 notes. Right. And so I would just put that on and I'd play each of the notes, and it helped my timing. And it also helped me like picking, because I'd pick every note. And so when you got the 16th notes, you'd just be going, right. And then after a while, I was like, oh, this is not that bad anymore. I can do this, right? I think it might have had some triplets in there too. So it was kind of cool. Like it gave you a feel for timing. I could probably still do a lot of practice in that zone. So I thought like that might actually be a thing too. Like I wonder if you could program the synthesizer, to just play like these rhythms. It could just be like, eighth notes, quarter notes, 16th notes, triplets, something like that. That might be good for practice.
Absolutely. I mean, I never did anything like that. I didn't have the discipline to, well, I didn't even think of it. Um, but for me, when I first started playing guitar, um, I kind of was also learning to play bass, so I just decided not to use a pick. And so like strumming wasn't really a challenge. Every time I tried to use a pick, um, I found it difficult to kind of like pick the strings that I wanted to and not kind of just all of them. Um, so yeah,
Oh,
I just decided I didn't use a pick for years.
oh, okay. Yeah, I guess like when I was playing guitar or learning to play, it was all about like, you know, Van Halen. So it was
Oh
like,
yeah,
it was like, okay, I got to play a bunch of notes and I got to play 3 notes per string. So like, then it was like, do, 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 you know, and it was really difficult. And I still can't play like Van Halen, not even close.
you can't.
No,
After all
not
these
at
years,
all.
you can't play like
After
Eddie Van Halen.
No, not nowhere near. I didn't even own any Van Halen records, but I just picture Van Halen because like he's got a style where it's like 3 notes per string. Like,
Hmm.
that's a lot of his playing. So like, and I think I did a lot of that. Like it was also like playing the notes and learning the scales. So like I would just go up and down the scales. And then I'd played in time with this cassette tape. And I'd start with the whole notes, the half notes. And so you just play everything and it would just get faster and faster. Um, or you'd be playing more notes. So it was good. It was good practice, just for like, it was like going to the gym for guitar
Hmm.
playing. Um,
Yeah, I
I,
did nothing like that. You were more of a studious guitar player than I was.
yeah,
I would
I
just
could,
kind of like learn a riff and just like do that. Like I'd play like the beginning of Over the Hills and Far Away, and that was enough. I didn't play the whole song, or I'd play like the opening riff of Day Tripper, and that was enough.
oh yeah. Yeah, I probably do that more now. Like I just play the riff over and over again, right? Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, yeah. Yeah. So maybe we can make up some tracks like that. That might be good to practice.
Hmm.
I was talking with someone and they were saying, like, because I was like saying, like, how do you practice your rhythm? Like I feel like I have a hard time, like if you're playing a song like keeping track of like what chord you're like if you're playing like some kind of solo or you're doing some kind of like improvisation, keeping track of what chord you're on and where to come in and go out.
Mm.
Like usually coming in is fine because you're like something happened, they just said the last word of the verse and then the guy hits the cymbal on the drums, you're like, okay, I come in right there. But then like where to end,
Yes.
or like how to play over the chord changes during like whatever improvisation you're doing, right? Whatever section
Hmm.
that is. So like what they had suggested was they said like, well, get your looper out and then practice. Like if you do like a 4-bar sequence in the looper, like 4 chords, over 4 bars, like practice coming in at any one of the 4 bars,
Oh, that's a good one.
like come in just on the fourth bar or the first
Hmm.
bar, right? And so I was like, okay, yeah, I got to practice that. That would be a good one.
Yeah, I think anytime you have like meaningful chord changes where you can't just play anything in the pentatonic scale at any time and it sounds good, it helps you develop your ear for playing over chords. like, you know, for instance, if you play that like that Django Reinhardt, you know, the swing Gitan or something like that, you can't just play the pentatonic the whole time in, you know, in G or whatever key that's in, because it sounds terrible when you get to the, you know, like the G sharp or whatever. Like there's
Yeah,
various
yeah,
points where you have to play something more approaching a melody than just
yeah.
goofing around on the pentatonic.
Yeah, that's where I'm kind of weak. Usually, like, like in the, I don't know if you notice, you probably know this. I'll just cop to it and, own up to it. But, when we had the band thing going on, all the guitar like solos, the improvisation, like I would just practice them and play them exactly the same way every time, because like, I'd work it out like on my own time. I'd figure out what I'm gonna play. Like I'd listen to the recording of us playing, and then I'd fit the guitar parts in there, and then when it came time to play, like I would just play exactly the thing. There was no
I think
improvisation,
I
right?
think that's a
So
good way to do it in a band.
yeah, oh yeah, yeah.
I mean,
I'm
I knew a girl in Minneapolis who, in her band, she would always play something different, and the rest of the band was like, you know, couldn't you just learn a guitar solo and play that instead of just
well,
making it up every time?
yeah. Well, I mean, it's good. It's like that's like the next level for me is to like be able to improvise over the zone that and make everything work. But I don't think there's anything wrong with like having a good guitar part that maybe like fits the song, and then you play it the same way every time. So it's kind of predictable. Right? So. But yeah, that's like where you need to grow in my skills.
Yeah. Well, I think you have that. You just like kind of chose to come prepared. That
I
was
don't
the way
know.
I.
I don't know that I totally have that one. I think that one, like, it's there. I can earn it. I'm gonna say I could earn that one. I don't know that I just got it in my back pocket. Right?
Well, you did a lot of improvisation when we played with Brendan. Um,
Yeah, a little bit. Right? A little bit. I think that could use some work too. Like I could see some room for improvement. I mean, like I guess like I'm that way. Like I always see like room for improvement.
well, that's
Which
never not the case. Like
yeah,
even
right.
if you were playing like Eddie Van Halen, like room for improvement.
I wonder, does Eddie Van Halen see room for improvement?
Um, yeah, I would imagine he does. I mean,
I wonder.
he's pretty good, but
Yeah. Yeah. I wonder. I mean, I'm not accusing him of anything too, but it's like, at some point, like when everybody says you're God and you're like really great, does like that can like be detrimental maybe to your growth mindset, like
mhm,
whether you can see the zone for improvement or not, right?
right,
But
yeah,
maybe it depends on where you are and who you're with, right? If you're with a bunch of amateurs, you're like, I don't need to improve. But if you're in a room full of top players that are really good, you're like, okay, I better be on my game here. Cause then again, like if you're Tom Petty or Van Halen, and the band is named after you, maybe, maybe you're not as worried.
I think it's a personality thing too. I mean, like, you know, um, I think some people are more worried about like being a virtuoso than others. Like, I really don't care. Like, if I'm playing with other people, as long as I play what I play, I'm happy with that. I don't really worry that other people are judging my ability unless I'm like, you know, like not keeping up, which is
Yeah.
that's a thing. You could be not keeping up, like not able to like, you know, hang with the chord changes and stuff like that. But
Yeah. I could
um,
see that. Yeah. That makes total sense.
you know, that guy from Anthrax, Scott Ian, he doesn't play solos at all. And I saw like a thing that was like a bunch of guys playing like the Game of Thrones theme, and Scott Ian was there, and he only played rhythm guitar the whole time. Everybody else took a solo except for him. And
Huh.
um, and I'm sure he's just like, you guys go ahead and do what you do. I just do this. I'm not interested in your wheelie wheelie
Yeah. Yeah.
dealy, you know.
Yeah, that actually reminds me. You've heard of Zach Wild.
Yes.
I saw this. You look this up later. Look up a video of him. It's like in Florida, and it's just like he's like in a parking lot, and you can see like it's like a Subway sandwiches or like, you know, it's just like a strip mall or something right in the background, and he's got a bunch of amps and a guy playing drums behind him, you know, like in a parking lot. It's just like, you know, seriously, like in a parking lot, right? He's not even on like a big riser on a stage or anything. And he looks a lot younger too. So this is like years ago. And he's like in Florida. And he does a bunch of songs. There's a few videos, right? And he does War Pigs and some other Black Sabbath stuff. And he just goes off and he's just like, he's totally, and he's great, but it's also like a little tiring, you know, like you know, like, and actually, you know, the funny thing is like that, like his version of War Pigs there is pretty rocking. It's like pretty amazing. The guy, he's really good. You know, he just goes off. But then I saw another one of him like in Japan, and he's in some studio in Japan, and it's just like the most boring thing. He's just like playing like six, like I don't know, 30-second notes like all over the fretboard. There's no melody, there's no break in the rhythm, and you can tell he's kind of just going up and down the scales like, and I don't know what that was about. It was just like really not even worth publishing. To be honest. Sorry, Zach, I forgive me, please. You know, he's not going to come to my party.
Yeah, don't publish your practice regimen.
Yeah, he's probably not going to go to the D&D game. You know, sorry. But you know what I mean? Like, you know, like you kind of have to see, like, if you compared the two videos, like they're both kind of excessive, but the one, like, I feel like he's got the song there and it's whole and it's like, you know, it goes through all of its phases. And then the other one, you're like, there's really no song here that I recognize. And there's not enough of a break to make this interesting, you know, like, because you need that. You need, like, you know, like songs like repetition is good, but then things have to change. And then you can even come back to the part you repeated earlier, and then people recognize it. And, you know, you know what I mean? And it makes your brain flow. But if you just do the same thing over and over and over and over again, and it's like actually kind of random almost, you know, just, you know, you just kind of, it just kind of all just turns into mush and you don't really get it, you know?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I don't listen to that like kind of like virtuoso guitarist music at all. And, you know, even sometimes when there is a melody, you know, like Eric Johnson, you know, he's kind of like a melodic virtuoso. It's got to be cool and not weak. Or I'm not going to like it. You know, it's like, to me, like the Cliffs of Dover, it's kind of like a Kenny G level melody. Like, I hate it.
I'm not going to tell him you said that. It
There's
would
a
hurt
lot
his
of
feelings.
notes in it. It's like, but all of the notes suck. It's just like this cheesy
Oh,
rhythm,
yeah.
Everything about it, I hate it. I hate
Oh, you
it.
can't stand clips of that funny. You know, I would say like, oh yeah, Cliffs of Dover is great, but like I don't own the album. I can't even, I could probably count the number of times I've heard the song beginning to end on one hand, and I wouldn't even use my thumb, you know, like, to be honest, you know, like, so I'm not like, I don't really know a lot of Eric Johnson, you know, like, but I figure out of all the Weedly guys, he's kind of like probably like less Weedly than some of them, and you know, like though totally proficient, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate that he's melodic, you know, whereas like sometimes like Joe Satriani is less melodic and more wheedly.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, I like Joe Satriani. I saw him live once, but I feel like I like him more because he's from San Francisco, and then he did that album about the Silver Surfer. But I like him more for those reasons more than actually the music, you know, like.
Yeah, I like that he played the devil in the Crossroads movie, which I never saw, but like that's
no, that was Steve Vai.
Oh, really?
Oh,
Shit,
ding, ding. Honk.
No, like I said, I've never seen the movie.
Oh, neither have I actually. But yeah, I think that's like, I think Steve Vai was the devil. Actually, okay. Steve Vai, speaking of the Weedly guys, I kind of, in my mind, I make him the king of the Wheatlers. You know, and I kind of have a thing for Steve Vai also, but like he's also another guy where like I don't think I own any of his records. you know, and I
I don't either.
probably couldn't name too many songs, though there's a few songs where I'm like, oh yeah, that was totally rocking, you know, like he just did a totally rocking Weedle
Hmm.
session, you know, like, and he's like, I feel like he's like more interesting than a lot of the other guys,
I
you
agree.
know?
Yeah, I actually saw like Joe Satriani and Steve Vai, and then somebody else,
Yeah.
like doing a thing where they all soloed, and it was really interesting to see, where one begins and the other lets out or whatever. Like they're they're kind of like, if you just played a song by David Lee Roth and then there was a solo, like a wheelie wheelie solo, I
Yeah.
wouldn't be able to say which one of those guys did it. But
Yeah.
if you see them all like laid end to end, then you can say, oh well, Steve Vai is he's more into that like dive bomby, I don't know. I don't know
Yeah.
what his signature thing is, but compared with like Joe Satriani,
Yeah.
there's a very, very clear difference.
Yeah. I feel like Steve Vai has this thing where like it's like the music is less important to him, like the notes and the scales and things, and actually the expression is more important. So like I feel like he wants to say or play the notes in a way that has this expression that he's trying, or something that he's trying to say, you know. I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
know everybody would say that, but I feel like he lives up to that more than a lot of the other guys, you know. And
Right.
I remember seeing a video with he where he was saying like, yeah, you know, a lot of people play this song. I forget one of his songs, like I forget the name of it, you know, and they play it, but he's like, you know, when I play it like this. So at the beginning, I play the riff here, and then later I play the riff down here, and I play it on one string, but it's like exactly the same notes.
Mm-hmm.
But he's like, yeah, I play it down here because it's expressive. It's a little more expressive, or I want to like, you know, I want to say a little more. So I play it in this spot because, you know, I'm playing on the third string and it's wound, and like I'm sliding up the string to the note rather than moving from hammering on or whatever he's doing. Right. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And it was very important for him, like the expression. Right. And I think that like it kind of comes through in the music a lot. Like he'll use the whammy bar or the wah pedal in a way that's like kind of different or unexpected,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And I think that that's like where his music is really unique, you know. You know, or where, you know, and I remember too when I was in high school, sorry Steve, forgive me, my friend, and I'm just going to throw Joe under the bus. My friend Joe Prisco uh pirated, he bought your record Flexible, the very first album that Steve Vai came out with, and he recorded it for me. We pirated your record. Sorry, Steve. But Joe gave that to me, and I listened to it a lot, you know. And actually, you know, actually maybe he didn't pirate the whole thing. He recorded some of it, and because that was back in the day in the 80s when people made mixtapes. So like Joe would always like, Joe actually was he had a huge music collection, and he would just always record stuff and give it to me, you know. And so like I had that first at least part of the Flexible record, and I listened to it a lot. Like it had the Attitude song on it, which is like super great. Have you heard the
Um,
Attitude? Oh, you got a
I'll have to look it
homework
up.
assignment.
Okay,
You got to look it up because it's like in like 7/4,
I'll put it on my list.
and
Seven
it's
four. Okay.
yeah, and it's totally like it's a total wheedler, but the riffs are like it's not just like constant, you know, 64th notes or whatever. You know, it's
Mm-hmm.
just it's like wah pedal and like, you know, whammy bar and like flurries of notes followed by like weird bends, and you know it's super creative. And then it's like in 7/4, it's like in this weird time signature, you know.
All right. What's it called?
The Attitude song. And I think he did this like when he was like 17 or something.
Okay.
It was just like, you know, like he probably recorded it. He was probably as old as I was when I heard it, you
Mm-hmm.
know, right? And it's like totally amazing.
Cool. I look forward to hearing it.
Yeah. Well, do you have anything you want to talk about? Is there anything?
Um, no, I kind of, kind of think we hit all the highlights. We've talked about a lot of, quite a variety of different things. Um, and we've probably run over allotted time. So I mean, we'll
Yeah.
probably have plenty of to edit together and see how this how this goes. But
Yeah. Okay. Well, what should we say in closing?
I don't know. You know, I've struggled with the you know the tagline thing, but I think it's important. Um, I don't know. It's probably something empowering. You know, something that you know, go forth and rock. Kind of a statement.
Okay. Well, maybe we should mention like, hey, maybe we should say like uh what we're gonna build,
Mm-hmm.
what we're gonna play, uh what song we're gonna learn, and or how we're gonna practice, something like that.
Right. No, I actually I want to just kind of reinforce that it is important to learn songs. I
Yeah.
I know a guy who made a point of never learning to play a song because he didn't want to be affected by other people. But it's not possible to not be affected, and then you just end up not being able to play anything. So learning songs is good.
Oh yeah. You know what I've been doing lately that actually was kind of effective? It was that Mary Spender. Like she had a video, kind of a video podcast where she said, "Yeah, I tried to do all the things that Beethoven did." Like
Hmm.
Beethoven had this like kind of like habits that he had, he followed like a daily routine. And so she
Mm-hmm.
said, "Yeah, I tried this for a week and here's what happened." Um, and so I saw that and I thought, "Oh, there's some weird ideas in there, right?" Like Beethoven, like apparently like every morning he counted out 63 coffee beans and then made his coffee, right? Apparently he got up at sunrise and then made his coffee, had a light breakfast, and then he worked till noon. And he had lunch, and then he went for a walk and took notes and did some stuff after lunch, right? There's probably more to it than that. But, the thing that I got from that I took away was that what I did was I started making a to-do list of the things that I wanted to do. And then I try and do it in the evening. Like I write down the to-dos. And then in the morning, before I spend any time on the internet, I try and get my ass out of bed and then
Mm-hmm.
I go in to do the to-dos, right? So like if I can get up at 7, I can eat breakfast by 7:30, and then if I don't have to work till 9 or 9:30, and now that I'm home all day, I don't have to commute. So like I
Mm-hmm.
got an hour or two, hour and a half to 2 hours, and I can do stuff. So and it's actually like a highly productive time you know
Mm-hmm.
and if you can somehow avoid the distraction of the internet and all things technology, if you can get some, like they call it, like deep work where you're just like really concentrating on what you're doing, um, that can be really good. I had like
Yeah.
these 10,000 like garage band files, and so I made that like a to-do list where I went through and I listened to every garage band file. And then I have these fictitious bands, like I have all these folders for all these bands, right? So I got like one folder that's the Eighth Notes, and then I got another
Mm-hmm.
folder that's the Obelisk, and then I got another folder that's like I forget. I just got a bunch of weird bands like rock,
Mm-hmm.
RAWK, right? Right. So like I just kind of listen to every song and I'm like, even if it's just like a snippet, because I'll just like, if I have a riff, I just record it.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of it's just kind of, and honestly, it's just like a lot of it's just garbage, you know? So, but then there's little bits where you're like, oh, that could be something. So what I did was first is I organized all the songs into folders. Like I got up early, skipped the internet. I just got out
Mm-hmm.
GarageBand and put the headphones on and started like organizing files. And then the next thing I did was I started listening to the songs that seemed like they might have some merit, and then I
Mm-hmm.
started chopping them up and trying to form them into like song structure. So I had like intro, verse, chorus, and then I just lay out the drums in GarageBand and maybe add some like a arrangement track, where you can just label the areas of the song.
Mm-hmm.
So I did that on a
That's
few.
great.
Yeah, it was actually super productive, right? So I had like a week where it was like highly productive. Now I kind of fell off a little bit because I got to the tough part where like I have these little snippets and stuff, and now I actually have to come up with something creative to like to drag them out of mediocrity, right?
Mhm.
So that's the hard part. I kind of fell off my productivity wagon, but I'm going to try and get back on. So that's my goal, right?
Yeah. Well, that's great. I mean, I think that you will. I mean, that's the thing about um, inspiration is that it comes and goes, but you've gotten you know, a lot of the stuff out of the way of the inspiration, meaning like, you don't have to go and create the backing tracks if you want to do something creative. You've already got them and they're organized and you've got, verse, chorus and all that. You don't have to like set up your DAW for, input devices and stuff like all that stuff that slows down creativity.
Oh yeah, I put clean up my desk on my to-do list because it really helps if you like well, my desk is all piled with crap and actually that's probably
Yeah.
why I'm not getting anything done now because my desk is just like it's a mess again. Like I cleaned it off one week and that kind of was the start of the whole thing.
Yeah.
But
I need to do that. I think that'll help me a lot.
yeah, oh totally. It was like a game changer. I was like, oh, now I can do anything. I had a
Hmm.
couple things like all over the desk that were like half finished projects that weren't making any progress. And then I was just stuck because it was like, I'm like, oh, I'll just finish that thing, but then I can't finish it for one reason or another. And it's taking up the space. So anyway, I cleaned up the desk and that really helped. And then I kind of organized some of the other things too. Like I organized the files on the computer and that was a help.
Hmm.
Um, and then I did a few other things too. Like I kind of played with the drum tracks a little bit to get them kind of the timing and stuff worked out a little bit. Right. And then I recorded a couple things. Like I recorded the chant. And then I recorded a couple things. Like I repurposed another song. I thought like, oh, this could actually kind of work out to a chant, and I'll do a few of those. It's just like single guitar and the you know, actually, and then just like a simple drum track. Right. So maybe I'll
Excellent.
I'll publish that. I fixed that baritone guitar, so I've been playing that. Been playing that. Maybe we'll talk about that in another episode.
Definitely. I think that, a little demo of the Sustainiac would be pretty cool to see.
Oh yeah, yeah, we should do that for sure. Yeah. So what are you working on?
Well,
What's
I'm not working on these things so much right now. I have a big list of to-dos. I got new pickups for my Gretsch, the Gretsch pickups, Hylotrons. I want to put those in, but I also want to refret that guitar. That's not going to happen like this week, but I've also got some. I want to put the little killer, the hot rail kind of pickups in my Strat and do some other work on the Strat. And I think that might be kind of my like main all around guitar for at least for at home playing. Um, I've got a bunch of other projects that I'm not going to get to this week, but yeah, those are sort of the cleaning off my desk projects.
Yeah, speaking of the to-do list, when you have a lot of little projects like that, it's really good to have a to-do list because I
Yeah,
find that I forget. Like I have all these things and then you like order some parts or you get distracted by something else and your parts come in the mail and then you're like, "Oh, I forgot what I was going to use these for," or like and it's. Hard to get back on something. So if you have
right.
a
When you've
list
got
or
a bunch of white boxes that I wonder, oh, that's that thing, that project.
yeah, right. Okay, cool. Yeah. So that's great, Kirk. So what are you going to play this week? What's your song you're going to learn?
My song that I'm going to learn. Oh, that's a really good one. I mean, I've got some songs that I've been kind of, like um, that I want to kind of learn how I'm going to play them and, have them get better. But like, I kind of feel like I should have a new song that I learn, like transpose a solo or something like that. I don't know. I don't know what it is, but there's something that I've been thinking about recently, and I just have to, remember what it was. I don't know. Since I talked about Runaway already, maybe it's like if I learn to play that solo,
Oh yeah.
that could be useful. That's an interesting song because it kind of jumps back and forth between major and minor kind of modes.
Yeah. That's actually an interesting idea. Like I'm not super musically, knowledgeable, but the idea that it like you everybody like or it's a very common thing to play in the diatonic where you just play in the scale and everything falls in the scale, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think like a lot of the most interesting music, and this is an advanced topic, is where you don't play diatonically and you know like you change modes or you change like from major to minor, you know just as you
Mm-hmm.
play, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it like if you have like the system kind of locks you in and locks you out of creativity, right? Because it's saying like, oh, you're just gonna, you got these 7 notes and these 7 chords that go with them, but nobody plays the diminished chords, so we'll throw that out. So you got your 6 chords,
Mm-hmm.
right? And your relative minor and your 1 4 5, you know what I mean? And then you have your 4 chord rock song, like, and so everything kind of falls into those systems because they sound good and they work, right? And it's very easy.
Yeah.
The formula is very easy to understand. But these other things are very creative and they totally exist. They're totally possible. So yeah, that would be a really cool one to learn. And I think there's a lot of great music that was written that way.
Right. Yeah, and one thing that I've kind of been thinking about more recently is that there are a bunch of songs that I like them for like one chord that occurs once within the song, or
One
like
chord
one little
once.
break. I was like, that's the song is about that one chord. You just have the whole song to like get there. Um, uh, yeah, I'm not remembering any of those exact songs right now, but like the song "Living on a Prayer" by Bon Jovi. It's
Yeah.
totally like cheesy song.
Yeah.
Um, but there's like a modulation in there, and like that's what this song is about. It's about that modulation, or like that Bryan Adams song "Summer of '69." There's like
Yeah.
one, like the bridge in the song is really like it's not a dummy bridge. It's a big pop song, but there's some
Yeah.
smart devices used to elevate it from average to you know something that has lasted whatever 30 years
Yeah.
and still gets played on the oldies radio.
It wasn't the oldies when I was listening to it in high school.
Yeah.
40 years ago.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know?
I mean, I don't even think I liked it then, but I was like,
Yeah, yeah.
compared with most of the music that's being put out now, this is pretty good.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, it's just a strong song. But
Yeah.
like I can totally see like when I was a kid, I was like, this is nothing. This holds nothing on my Black Sabbath and AC/DC, because
Hmm.
I was kind of into rock, I wanted to,
Yeah.
want to listen to some rock or Rush,
Hmm.
right. Okay, cool.
So
Well,
what are you going to play this week?
oh, that's a great question. I haven't decided yet. I had a couple ideas. I was working on the chant the last couple weeks, I was trying to write a chant. Mine were not as interesting you know, as the 1,000-year-old or 600-year-old version. That actually the 600-year-old one, it's like this simple thing, but it's like, it's pretty good. So I guess I did that already. What would be new? I had this weird idea to try and do a doom metal version of uh, "Good Times Roll" by the Cars. I kind
Mm.
of know the basic chords, but I don't know the solo and the little break. So I thought, like, what if we slowed that down to like 65 beats a minute and used heavy distortion? Just picture it. Could be a thing. I don't know.
It's hard to picture, but I'm
Hard.
intrigued.
I think it's really easy. I don't know. But anyway, I don't know. So it could be that. What else could there be a thing to learn? Yeah, I got to think of a good song to learn. Like I'm gonna get over this soon, but I've been into this doom metal thing, and then I think I'm gonna move into something else. Um, so if I was going to learn another doom metal song, I should learn something by Electric Wizard, which, you know, everybody says, like, you know, when they talk about doom metal, everybody's like, Sleep wrote the book, or like Black Sabbath wrote the book. But the funny thing is, all those doom metal bands, none of them sound like Black Sabbath. Like, I know
Hmm.
you can hear where the influence, but they don't sound like them. They all sound like Electric Wizard, you know, right? You know, though
I'm
some of
gonna
them
put
sound
that on
like
my list
Sleep.
too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Listen to
Okay.
some
Yeah.
Electric Wizard. Yeah. You know what you got to do is listen to Dope Smoker. The name
Oh
of
no,
their.
I love that song. Yeah, that's Sleep.
Oh no, Dope Throne. My mistake. Error.
Oh, okay.
I lost the points on that trivia
Okay.
question. Dope Throne, I think,
Okay.
is the one. Shoot, I gotta look it up. I think it's Dope
I'll,
Throne.
I'll
Yeah,
I'm sure I'll
Dope
find it.
Smoker is Electra. Yeah, I'm mixing up the two.
Yeah.
You know, but yeah, they have some good. They have a couple good songs on there, and they're all like, you know, 65 beats a minute, and they're tuned down to C standard. It's funny.
Oh, that's
Speaking of that, is
interesting.
I tuned my guitar to C, and I thought, like, oh man, the strings are just going to be too floppy, and you know, it's going to be a problem. And so I did that, and I was playing, and actually, I've come to like it.
Hmm.
It's weird. Yeah, I got my guitar tuned to C. I tuned it up the other day back to standard tuning, and then it was that way for a few days, and I tuned it back down to C. Like,
Which guitar did you do that to?
I tuned the Guild down to C, and then I
Oh, okay.
tuned this Agile guitar down to C too. I tuned the SG down to C also. You know,
Okay. I
like,
mean, it makes a difference. I was gonna say, like, your Jaguar would probably, sound a lot different that way. Like, it might be too floppy, with the strings you have on it because it's short scale. But so is the
oh
Agile, right?
yeah,
The
yeah,
ours
they're all yeah,
Gibson scale.
yeah, they're all the Gibson scale. Yeah, the maybe the Jaguar would not work well, but that other one is a 25.5-inch scale though. So maybe that one would be better
Hmm.
down tuned. I don't know. I haven't tried that yet. Yeah, that could be an experiment to try. I'll put it on my to-do list, right?
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, so maybe, yeah, maybe next week I'll be more prepared to answer that question.
Well, I think
You
what
know.
we're only gonna get better at this over time, and it's like being able to answer these, off the cuff questions, um, is something that
Yeah.
takes practice.
Yeah, maybe just for fun, we'll throw it out for all the people that are watching. In the comments, you should tell us what you're learning this week and what you're playing, right? So
I think that'd be great. Yeah.
I think I'm gonna play that Agile guitar this week, and I'm gonna learn it's either going to be the Cars or it's going to be Electric Wizard, but maybe it's going to be the Electric Wizard playing the Cars. I don't know, right? And then what are we going to build? Do you have any DIY projects?
That I'm gonna build.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
Um,
you had all those pickups and things to install.
yeah. I mean, I I really do want to build a fuzz pedal, but I think I mentioned I brought mine home from the practice space, and I have been playing with that a little bit, the woolly mammoth. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I want some other pedals that I really should build myself, like a compressor. I could build a compressor.
Oh
Um,
yeah, we should talk about that. I got some suggestions.
Excellent. Yeah, I would be open to suggestions. Um, and I don't know. You can tell me if this is something I should just buy, but I kind of want a tremolo pedal for home. Like, I have one at the studio, but I'd like a tremolo pedal here.
Oh no, I think tremolos is one that you could DIY for sure.
Okay.
There's a few like tried and true and loved tremolos, right? Like the EA tremolo is one of them. There's a few that people really like. There's also this thing called the tremulous loon, which
Hmm.
is a tremolo with like a lot of options. You can build it with no options, but you can build it with all the weird options on it too, right? Like it can have like kind of like the rise and fall time on the LFO, so it can go
Hmm.
from like a triangle to a saw wave or a
Oh,
square,
cool. Oh,
you
wow.
know. And there's a few other options too. Yeah, tremulous lunar. It's not like a hard circuit either. It's like, it's like an op amp and a few more parts, right?
Okay.
or
So
maybe
it'll be
2
easier
op
than
amps.
the trem shifter.
Yeah, maybe it's like the trem shifter. It's like a step. It's a step easier.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's a little easier. Like the trem shifter is like the tremulous loon, but then it also has the filter.
Yeah.
So it's got that filter built in. Um, but tremulous loon can be complicated because they have like all these mods for it. Like people have built it in all these different ways. It's been around since like 2000. Like it's like an old school DIY project. You know, yeah. So it was by this group called commonsound.org, and they used to publish. This is kind of cool, actually, which I think is kind of funny. Like back before you could do circuit boards, like, and they were easily, it was easy to order them with services like Osh Park, right? They published like a circuit board just printed, and what you could do is you could just download their file, print it on paper, and the idea was you just glued it to a piece of cardboard and then poked holes in the cardboard where the parts went, and you'd send the through hole parts through the cardboard and then bend the leads and solder them together. So the cardboard just had like the traces drawn on it, right? And you just poke the parts through and solder them. Like,
Oh, cool.
yeah, it was kind of cool. They had a few projects that were really pretty interesting. They had a this phaser, and they had a like this like oscillator thing. It wasn't a guitar pedal so much, but it was like it made drones. I built a couple of these. I could show them, I could show them to you, but they're it's called the Tri-Wave. And the Tri-Wave is like 2 oscillators with 3 LFOs, and you can turn these knobs to say how much of that LFO affects either one or both of the oscillators. So it would just create these weird droning, sounds, right? And it's kind of a cool project, you know. So yeah, actually, what's funny, that should come up, because I dragged mine out. I built 2 of these. Like I built one like a long time ago, and then I built another one maybe like I probably built one like 20 years ago, and then I built another one like 10 years ago. You know,
Oh, so you're due for another one.
yeah, I guess it's time. Yeah, I don't know, but
Every 10 years.
yeah, every 10 years I build a Tri-Wave. But yeah, I built one. I never really used it for anything. It was just like an interesting DIY thing, but maybe I should get it out and do some weird like droning jam with it. I don't know, right? But yeah, you know what? Speaking of the trem shifter, I have one that I haven't finished yet. So I think that's going to be my DIY project,
Oh, excellent.
because I got the
Yeah,
because
I want to talk to you about your trem shifter because I think that you might have made some changes from the last time you made one.
yeah, we should totally compare notes. I'm going to move the last one. I liked it, but I think I'm going to rearrange the knobs on it, on the
Hmm.
new one, make them in a little slightly different place.
Yeah, and
You know, you
weren't you going to reverse the direction of one of the knobs because it was like the opposite of how you would intuitively expect it to work?
maybe, I can't remember, maybe. I could see too, it has those 3 switches at the top. Like one of them sets the filter range, and one of them sets the LFO shape. And I think one of them I don't know, I forget, but like it might be cool to like make a foot switch out of one of those so you could turn on and off the filter.
Hmm.
So that might be
Mm-hmm.
kind of a cool thing. So you could have the trem going, and then you could hit the switch with your foot to turn on the filter, and turn it off again. So I don't know, I might do a mod like that, but the first one I built sounded great, so I
Yeah,
thought
I
like I
agree.
should build another one.
Yeah, I mean, it got me excited about the trem shifter.
Yeah, so that'll be the DIY project. And I got the board, like my board is all populated. How far along are you on yours?
Oh, I haven't started. I don't even think I have the parts. I have to check. I
Oh,
need to get the multifunction tester out and make sure I've got like, well, probably
yeah,
have to just order
check
some
your
parts.
check your parts and tell me. I got a bunch of parts. Maybe we can like I can give you some parts, because I got a ton of parts, right? Like I got extra. I got like resistors and capacitors for days. So because anytime you buy resistors, you got to buy like 200.
Right.
So I got like tons of resistors. So let me know. Maybe we can work something out to get this off the ground faster. I can give you the parts for it.
Okay. Well, the last time I started like pulling out parts to see if I could start a project, I was like, I don't think I have any of the right parts. Like, I might not have like been ordering for this project, or I don't know, or I just failed. So I got to work on that.
Yeah. You know what you're reminding me of too is as I built two of these things there. I called it the summon fuzz. So that's one pedal there. It's a big muff, but it has a blend knob on it. So, you know, if you turn this knob here all the way down, you just get your clean signal. And if you turn this up, it starts blending in the big muff, right? You know, until you're all big muff or like 50%. So supposedly this is good
Wow.
for bass, you know, like because it blends the clean signal. And a lot of times
Mm-hmm.
bass, you lose the clean signal, and so you lose the bottom end, you know, because a lot of the bass, the actual, you know, rumbling bass sound, the low, you know, sub harmonics or whatever it is, like that just gets filtered out through like all the distortion. But anyway, so I had this, and like I bought a circuit board off the interwebs, and it didn't work. Like, or it worked, but it like had this oscillation. So it was just like, the whole time. It was terrible. And so I figured out how to fix it, right? And so I swapped out one of the caps in here, and that got rid of the oscillation. And so now this one is working, but I built two of them. Like here's the second one right here. This one's not quite done yet. And this one doesn't work. So that's like, actually, it's going to be my second DIY project, is to pull the thing out of the box and like see if I can figure out what's wrong with this one, right? So I fixed that
Cool.
first one. I got the knobs on it, but
Is it the same thing? Same problem, probably?
you know, this one, you know, I thought this one was working, and I plugged it in the other day, and it just didn't make any sound at all.
Oh,
This is totally
it's a
dead. So
different problem.
yeah, I don't know. I got to just open it up and figure out what's wrong in there, you know. You know.
Well, I think a demo of that would be really cool to see, because you know, I have a feeling that that would, you know, be really useful for a bass player.
Yeah. Let's do it. You know, I got the bass, but I also got this baritone guitar. So maybe I'll use the baritone or the bass. The baritone's pretty low. It's tuned down to like B, you know,
Mm-hmm.
so it's almost, you know, like it's probably in the range you're playing a lot of bass in, though it doesn't get as low.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, so maybe we'll do that next time, you know?
Yeah, that'd be
Okay.
good. Yeah, we got to figure out how we're going to do audio demos and things like that, like how it's going to work with the show format and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
I think people would like to hear some, like, I mean, I think the AV part of this whole prospect is, you know, something that we want to explore and discuss.
Oh yeah. Actually, let's throw this out to any potential listeners. What would you like to hear or see?
Yes.
You
Yeah.
know, we kind of need that, right? Need a little
Mm-hmm.
direction, you know? Um, yeah. So why don't we wrap this up then, and then we'll have to do some editing. I'm just gonna quit the recording here. We'll call that a wrap. We can always like tack something on the end. Um, you know, if we need some kind of outro, right? I'm gonna stop recording. I'm hoping like that was like